The story begins with a certain guy running to his hideout after successfully setting a trap. He is hunting for a certain ability user. But suddenly he was discovered much earlier than he expected. The enemy turned out to be much faster and more attentive. The user of the abilities was clearly not entirely human, his speed and strength were on a completely different level. The hero had no chance of salvation. With just one swing of the blade, the enemy was able to completely separate his left arm from the rest of his body. The guy screamed with all his might in pain. The ability user ordered the hero to return all the photos and videos of a certain organization that he took a few minutes ago. This is the only way this brat can ensure you a calm and quick death, otherwise he will have to beg for his death for a very long time. However, the guy was not going to succumb to these manipulations. He considered him and everyone like him to be simple trash. They should stop dreaming. Do they all really think that thanks to special abilities, users are allowed to do everything? These creatures don't think about others at all. The man was not going to bother with this weakling for long, since he is so proud, then let him think a little better. But in the next world, his huge blade pierced the hero through, all his internal organs were damaged, and because of this, blood began to flow from his mouth. The ability user decided that since this smart guy was not going to return the photos and videos to him, then he should just be destroyed. The guy turned out to be not so simple. Even if he dies today, he will certainly be able to take this bastard with him to the next world. Somehow he had a device of an ability user in his hands. The man never expected this. Where did he get such a thing from? In fact, the hero has been searching for the truth for 2 whole years, during which time he was able to find several valuable trophies. Now the guy has a huge advantage in this fight. If he manages to activate this skill right away, the enemy will definitely die. But unfortunately, he did not succeed. After all, people with special abilities have incomparably greater potential. His enemy used one of his techniques and completely got rid of the effects of paralysis, and also managed to throw the guy several meters back. Now the hero had no hidden advantages left. He felt his soul slowly leaving his body. He could only say goodbye to his family. The guy has been following this man with abilities for a long time and knows perfectly well how terrible a villain he is, but unfortunately he cannot be defeated. Now, if he had at least some abilities, he would never have lost to such a bastard. How terrible it all is. Suddenly, instead of dying, the hero woke up at a table in some cafe, and in front of him lay a plate of strange food. This place looked like the most ordinary cheap cafe. People were sitting around, but they were not eating as usual, but with their hands, like animals. But why did this happen? A minute ago the guy was sure that he died. How did he manage to move to this place? Suddenly the waitress turned to him. She was a pretty young girl. She wondered if the dear visitor wanted anything else. After that, the beauty sat down next to him at the table. She was upset by the fact that the hero did not eat his food. In fact, this is not the custom here. This made the guy even a little shy. After all, the restaurant worker is quite pretty. He promised to have dinner right away, but at some point the hero notices a strange thing. This meat looked as if it was completely raw. And the waitress herself actually behaved somehow incorrectly. There was a slight madness in her gaze. The meat must be eaten while it is still fresh. This restaurant seemed incredibly strange at the same time, but at the same time familiar. Was it really a hallucination before death? The place looked too real. At some point old memories pop up in the guy's head. He had been here before. Several years ago, this cafe was completely cordoned off by law enforcement officers, and the area around it was called particularly dangerous and other people were not allowed there. All the clients in this establishment turned into monsters. Only the hero managed to escape that night. That was the day when it all began. 2 years have passed since that moment. In this restaurant the guy first saw creatures that have special abilities. Every visitor who ate the food subsequently died. That night, by some miracle, only the guy did not suffer any consequences. He remembers the phone in his pocket and immediately takes it out. After that there was no doubt, time really rolled back. Now, since he managed to be resurrected, he has no right to allow others to decide his fate. He needs to get out of his chair now and do something. This cafe is just entertainment for ability users. The waitress and chef are terrible criminals. They need to be stopped somehow. Suddenly, a sign appeared in front of the hero, as if from a video game. It announced that a suitable target had been found and the game world was loading. After that, the whole world around the guy began to change. the room began to look the same as it did a few hours after the incident 2 years ago. All the people who ate the poisoned meat turned into terrible monsters, they completely lost their minds and behaved like zombies. From now on, they had no goals or desires, all they could do was continue to eat other people's flesh and force others to do the same. A sign in front of the guy's eyes said that the loading of the world was successfully completed. These are virtual devices of a horror game. But the hero absolutely did not understand what was happening now, what other game world and virtual device there was. Perhaps the answer to this was in the letter. To activate it you just need to click. Everything really looked exactly the same as in computer games. However, when the guy opened the clue, he didn't find any specific answers there. In fact, there were only more questions. It was only clear that this place was actually a created illusion, and in order to get out of here, you had to defeat the boss. Since this is a video game, it means the hero must have special abilities. Now he could create things only with the power of thought. As soon as he thought about the gun in his hand, it immediately appeared in it. It seemed that materialization had become his special ability. The guy didn't really understand anything about what was happening, but now he had supernatural powers, which means he can change everything. This time he will be able to take revenge on all those freaks who harmed his family. No one else will dare to separate him from his little sister. At some point, the monsters notice him. Only one question came from their mouths: why doesn't this fool eat meat, just like them? If he does not do this, he will never be able to become one of them. The monsters began to slowly walk towards the hero. Fortunately, he had a weapon in his hands. Now he needs to quickly get through this dungeon. The creatures will be the first step on his path. It turned out that there was not only a guy in this room. A girl with pink hair was hiding under one of the tables. Her name was Lishu. She was a member of a special security group and reported to her superiors that the target was fighting an awakened one. Suddenly, as soon as she lowered the walkie-talkie, one of the monsters jumped under her table. The girl did not expect to be noticed. Even though she has been working as an agent for quite a long time, these monsters are still too scary. Lishu really does not like such tasks. Meanwhile, the disgusting zombies were getting closer and closer to the hero. They had only one thing in mind: they wanted to eat him. The guy easily fought them off. Thanks to his pistol he could fight them from a distance. After all, they are incredibly slow. The girl was surprised how the hero made such clean and neat movements. At that moment he looked more like a soldier than she did. After a dozen zombies were shot, the sign announced that the hero had increased his level from first to second, and now his strength had increased. He wanted to check it out right away. Since his body had become better, it would be even easier for him to deal with these monsters. Now the guy had the opportunity to fight zombies with his bare hands. He was able to remove several zombies at once with one blow. He defeated monsters with such ease that perhaps he could become that legendary user of the highest level. But first the hero needs to defeat the boss of this dungeon. This is the only way he can leave this place and move forward. In this dungeon, the main enemy turned out to be a pair. The butcher had the 7th level of strength, and his assistant waitress had the 6th level of strength. Strong enemies immediately rushed with their weapons to the advantage of the guy. A huge cleaver could easily cut him in half. The hero fired all the remaining cartridges from his pistol into the butcher, but this thug didn't even seem to feel anything. The defense of these monsters is really high. They block all hits. It was an ideal reason to test other weapons. But as soon as the guy tried to materialize something better, the system informed him that for now he could only create a dagger and a pistol. There are limitations here. To overcome them, you need to go through more games and get more drawings. Apparently now you need to improvise. Since the chef is a huge monster in himself, the waitress should be killed first. She is just now getting close. The hero easily dodged her sweeping blow with the blade, and after that he quickly carried out his counterattack. He managed to hit the target. The monster, pretending to be a pretty girl, then screamed with all its might and was practically cut in half. As soon as the first boss fell to the ground, the chef immediately tried to finish the guy off. He is able to do this with one blow. The thug raised his heavy cleaver up and struck with all his might at the place where the hero stood a second ago, but nothing happened. The guy turned out to be several times faster, and after a couple of moments he found himself on the chef's back. This creature is too slow. They didn't know who they were in contact with. One swing was enough for the hero to cut the head of this thug. Now the dungeon can be considered completed. The reward for completing it was a drawing of a new weapon. these are the things that are needed to open up the ability to materialize other guns. It was a black steel shotgun, its rate of fire depended on hand speed, a pretty good trophy for such a mission. As soon as the guy picked up the drawing, the system reported that the simulation was over and he had one more reward, the opportunity to draw a lottery ticket. He also increased his level to the third. In total you can gain 100 levels, if you reach the last, you may become a god. However, there was no time for such thoughts yet. First of all, the hero wanted to use his lottery ticket. He tossed a small white ball, and after a few seconds a smiley face with a clown fell out of it, which gave the opportunity to carry an unlimited number of things. Lishu sat under the table all this time and wondered how this guy managed to feel nothing, while killing so many opponents. The girl reported to her superiors that the visitor had somehow managed to kill the target, and she was ordered to try to make contact with him. The special agent was a little worried, because it was not clear how the hero would react. Perhaps he would want to kill her right away. Lishu slowly approached him and asked if he was okay. He needed to understand her words correctly. The girl said that she was a member of a special security group. She was monitoring these two ability users. The guy knew very well what kind of security group it was and what it did, but what did it need? Were they really going to arrest him? He calmly asked the employee what her intentions were. If Lishu started attacking, she would have to be eliminated. The girl was worried too much and at some point couldn't stand it. The hero shouldn't worry, she only came with good intentions. The bosses were notorious and dangerous ability users, they definitely deserved death. The guy should take it as an ally. But he couldn't understand how a serious member of a special security team could be so cowardly. Perhaps Lishu is just lying, you should check her. For this the hero asks her what her goal is. Suddenly his phone rang. He picked up the phone and was shocked by what he heard. The man at the other end of the phone was being chased by a monster and he urgently needed help. The guy tried his best to find out the address. He should hurry to the scene, because a loved one is now counting on him. But unfortunately, the hero was not told the exact location, and the conversation ended abruptly and short beeps were heard on the phone. The girl asked what happened. As it turned out, the guy's girlfriend is now being pursued. Perhaps this is a user of abilities. He decides not to waste time and immediately rushes to find her. Lishu wants to go with him, maybe she can help somehow. The friend's name was Shaan. In her past life no one attacked her. Could the situation be influenced by the butterfly effect due to the hero's rebirth? She was a young pretty girl with blonde hair. Right now she was running away from a monster. The guy wouldn't call anyone to harm her. At some point, Shaan had to stop, because the user of abilities was right in her path. He turned out to be much faster. The girl was very frightened and ordered the villain not to come even a meter closer to her, otherwise she would immediately call the police. The scoundrel found it funny to hear this. Did this stupid thing really think that ordinary people could stop him? If Shaan is really that naive, then she should just understand that no one will come to her aid even if she screams with all her might. At this moment, the attacker's right hand turned into a huge tentacle that could stretch several meters. With the help of this vile thing, he was able to easily grab the girl. Unfortunately, she did not have a chance to escape. Shaan understood perfectly well that she couldn't just leave. Her friend remained her last hope. Just as the ability user was about to finally grab the girl, a hero suddenly appeared behind him. And with all his might he stabbed the villain in the neck. The blood scattered in different directions, after which the vile monster with tentacles should not survive. Didn't this bastard's mother teach him in childhood that if you talk nonsense for a long time, you can die? Creatures like him have no place among the living. Shaan immediately rushed to her friend. She was very scared. If only a few more seconds, then everything would have turned out much worse. Lishu could hardly catch up with the guy. He ran incredibly fast. Could he really be a user of the ability to control his physique? It turns out that the villain did not die after being stabbed in the neck. Judging by the small amulet on his neck, he belongs to a group of killer bees. This was a group of perverts who like to conduct experiments on people. The hero did not expect to meet them so quickly. Suddenly the monster had even more tentacles. He was happy that now he would have even more toys. The villain believed that these fools were very mistaken when they came here to help their friend. Now they will all become his experimental subjects. Lishu immediately tried to finish him off with her pistol, but she failed. The tentacles turned out to be very strong. As soon as the girl began to reload her weapon, the ability user immediately tried to hit her with all his might. At that moment, she realized that she did not have time to evade. Could she really die here now? The situation seemed hopeless. However, at the last moment she was saved by a guy. He asked her to take care of Shaan, and he could deal with this monster alone. The security department employee was increasingly surprised by the strength of her friend. He could definitely become a fighter of the highest rank. The hero was simply wondering why this idiot was mocking ordinary girls. If he wanted to fight, then let him fight him. The guy's system recognized this creature as a boss named Tentacle. He had the 10th level of strength. The monster couldn't even believe that this arrogant boy really thought he was stronger if he could teach him a lesson. But the hero clearly had no intention of losing today. He quickly dodged the tentacle strike and immediately jumped high into the air. And after that, with all his strength, he kicked the user of the abilities on the head. The scoundrel did not have time to escape this attack. And he hit the concrete floor with all his might. The attack was so strong that even a member of the B gang could not stand on his feet. The guy used his system and materialized a shotgun in his hands. He is certainly not the strongest warrior in the entire city. Well, his strength is certainly enough to finish off such a vile pervert as this monster with tentacles. He definitely shouldn't walk on this earth. The enemy was too weakened by the previous attack and therefore was unable to dodge the bullets, which hit him in the chest and stomach. At this moment, the mutant was so frightened that he perceived the hero as heavenly punishment, and even imagined huge wings behind his back. The ability user has never seen a technique like this before. This person can actually create weapons out of thin air. The villain once heard stories about a warrior who would receive the ability of a divine messenger. Could it be him? A user with a similar ability once walked the earth, and in a short time he managed to achieve incredible strength. If this is really the case, then the mutant has no chance of salvation. He can only remain silent and beg for mercy. The ability user quickly fell to his knees and asked the guy to have mercy on him. Now he can take him as a slave. However, to his great regret, the hero did not even answer anything, but simply put his shotgun to his head. This scoundrel is definitely trying to pull off some kind of trick to avoid his death. He should stop dreaming. No sane person needs such a weakling as a pet. It was ridiculous for him to count on such a thing. As soon as the enemy fell dead, the system informed the guy that the next boss had been defeated, and he could use another ticket as a reward. At this moment, the hero was wondering if you should tell your friend about your abilities. It would be better to wait for now. Lishu couldn't believe that such a strong monster died after several attacks from the guy. Her new acquaintance is truly incredibly talented. The girl asked him if the ability to create weapons was his main technique. She had just never seen such a thing before. Even the members of the special security group did not have such techniques in their arsenal. This power is simply amazing. Lishu suddenly thought, what if she invited the hero to join their clan, in which case she could get a good reward. Shaan still couldn't come to her senses due to extreme stress. Her friend asked the guy what kind of creature it was. The hero tried to explain to her that this is in fact not quite a monster, but a user of abilities, that is, a mutant with special powers. To put it bluntly, they can be considered people with paranormal abilities, but is it really possible that if you kill such a person, you can get punished? The guy hurried to reassure his girlfriend. She shouldn't worry about it. This scoundrel attacked them first, so it's simple self-defense. Lishu said that they can safely go home. Now her people will arrive at the scene and clean everything up. The security officer even drove them home in her car. The hero asked his friend to be as careful as possible in the future. Soon the girl was home and they said goodbye. She promised to be attentive and not bump into strange people. After that, Lishu introduced herself to him and named her position. In fact, this should have been done much earlier. The guy understood perfectly well that this girl invited them into her car for a reason. She clearly had some intentions. Lishu realized that the hero had guessed everything. It turned out that she wanted to take him to the headquarters of the special security group and talk. The guy immediately assumed that his friend wanted to invite him to her group. In principle, this could be useful in the future. The hero also said his name in response. His name is Shaan and he doesn't mind going, but first he needs to wash his face. The employee must wait. The guy went to his house, which was located next door, and washed the blood off his hands. He still knew too little about his system. So he tried to activate it and find out more about the available abilities, and he also had a lottery ticket. As it turns out, he now has access to a unique technique of the highest rank, thanks to which he can control gravity. As soon as Shaan activated it, his whole body began to feel strange. He had never felt something like this before. If you follow banal logic, then now he has the opportunity to apply gravitational forces separately for each thing. The hero wanted to check it out immediately and concentrated his attention on a jar of shampoo that stood a few meters away. After a few seconds, the item actually appeared in his hands. This is simply incredible, and now the ability is quite weak. However, as he gets used to it, it will in any case become stronger. By the way, he still had that clown emoticon. As soon as the hero picked it up, the item immediately disappeared. Does this mean that it is activated and its ability is available for use? As expected, everything that happens is very similar to the game. The guy has a pocket in which you can put an unlimited number of items. If he managed to acquire such useful skills on the first day, then it's hard to even imagine what awaits him next. At that time, Lishu was sitting in the living room and thinking that if it weren't for her new acquaintance, she could have died at the hands of that mutant with tentacles. Suddenly, the doors near her began to slowly open. It was very strange, because the guy said that there was no one in the house except him. A few seconds later they opened completely, but no one emerged from there, and behind them there was pitch darkness. The girl jumped up from her chair and took the weapon in her hands, as if she had just heard some noise from this room. The situation could get out of control at any moment. Perhaps now there is another ability user next to her. Therefore, the security officer activated her special technique, which allows her to hide her presence. But as soon as Lishu looked into the dark room, she was immediately discovered. Inside was a creepy ghost in the form of a woman. This creature had very long black hair and blood was flowing from its eyes. It definitely saw the girl even in disguise. Lishu was incredibly scared when she saw this creature. She ordered him not to come closer and pointed a gun at him. Suddenly, the situation in the room changed dramatically. The ghost instantly disappeared, and the owner of the house asked his friend to calm down a little. The girl tried to explain to him that a moment ago some scary woman stood in front of her. The guy didn't understand at all what she was talking about. He didn't see any woman. Was everything okay with Lishu? It was obvious that there was no one in this room except the two of them. Maybe the security officer was just nervous. The girl had not yet been able to fully recover and tried to prove to Shaan that the ghost was here a few seconds ago. The hero claimed that even though his house is quite old, it has an alarm system. If someone broke in, they would notice. In the end, the girl calmed down a little. Perhaps she was just too worried about that incident. The guy asked her to stop being scared. They should quickly go to their special security department, after which the heroes leave. At the same time, in one of the neighboring houses, there was a man standing in front of the window who was definitely related to the ghost of a woman. As it turns out, it was Shaan, which is quite hard to believe, but most likely she is also an ability user. Shaan and Lishu soon arrived at the Alien Energy Bureau. This administrative building was now quite noisy. Their organization consists of 22 teams, which are named after heavenly stems and earthly branches. The girl works in the number 1 special security unit. They are mainly responsible for the affairs of foreigners in their city. In his past life, the hero had not even heard of such places. He could not even imagine that such professions existed. The acquaintances walked along the corridor and took the elevator to the director of the organization, whose name was Sial. The man let them in. When Lishu entered the office, as usual there was nothing to breathe in. The director was smoking in the room again. Sial asked for forgiveness for this. Unfortunately he can no longer control himself. He was an instructor of a special security group. He had already been informed about the hero by phone, so the man was the first to turn to him and introduce himself. Shaan said his name and they shook hands. The director was very interested in whether this person was really so strong. The man immediately noticed the potential in his eyes and laughed. Just by the look of this guy you can tell that he is good. After that, they sat on the sofa and talked about the awakening of the hero. This happened just a few hours ago. At the same time, Shaan had no idea how he managed to do this and acquire such an ability. First of all, the guy wanted to know whether it was harmful to his body and whether there was something like an outflow of vitality. This was actually the first time Sial had seen a person who was so careful about his abilities. It was actually not worth worrying about. At worst, these powers are physically draining. There will be no serious harm. In fact, the hero was just trying to appear inconspicuous. At one point, Shaan asked if one person could have multiple abilities. This could be very useful. Sial replied that he once met people with 2 types of special powers. Such specimens are very rare and are strong fighters. For example, in their special security unit there are very few of them and they all have a high position. In fact, if you think about it like this, there is no limit to the number of abilities that one person can have. The guy realized that he is not the only one who can do this, but it is unlikely that others have the same system that allows them to increase strength. The director recommended that he not be too arrogant. He should not consider himself somehow chosen or special. After all, during his long service he had already seen a lot of young people who, because of their dreams, ended poorly. Shaan decided to simply demonstrate one of his abilities. A small box moved from the table straight into his hands. The security department employees were shocked. This is truly amazing, only true masters have similar skills. The hero explained to them that this is his second psychic technique. With the first, he can materialize weapons out of thin air. The girl informed the director that based on her previous observations, this person could be trained and he would become a fighter of the highest rank. The man didn't even believe it at first. Such fighters are even rarer than people with 2 or more unique abilities. Perhaps today they managed to find a real treasure. They need to convince Shaan to join their organization. Sial sat closer to the guy and wanted to tell him something interesting. The hero, in turn, behaved very carefully, because he understood perfectly well that this person would probably want to offer him cooperation, as soon as everything needed to be carefully thought through. The director praised him for his incredible strength and determination. Wouldn't the young man want to test his capabilities with them? In addition, they can give him not only membership in the organization, the guy will of course receive a salary and much more. He can get 5 insurances and 1 bonus right today, and his monthly income will be 100,000. Isn't that a dream? In addition, they will provide information about foreign worlds and can help with integration into new areas. Shaan thought for a while and decided that this was an excellent opportunity to find representatives of the organization that harmed his family in a past life. Therefore, the hero accepts their offer. Although at the beginning he was going to refuse, he is ready to join their special unit. The man was very happy when he heard this. Since the guy decided to agree, then he can be trusted with some information now. There are many different types of ability users in this world, but ultimately they all fall into 3 categories. One of the systems was called the flesh system. Such people had the ability to change their limbs and physical strength, that is, everything that concerns the flesh. The second system was called elemental. Its representatives can manipulate all types of matter and elements. And finally, the last type of system was called character traits. Such warriors have a variety of strange and inexplicable abilities. Shaan could not understand, so what type of psyche his current state belongs to is really difficult to determine. The man suggested that rather his multiple psychic abilities relate to character traits. If you think about it that way, it's true. In a sense, the particular system does fit that description. Sial is already quite tired today. Perhaps that's enough talking. Now it's better for everyone to go home and have a good rest. By the way, the guy should check his bank account now. They sent him a bonus for eliminating that pervert from the gang of killer bees. The hero took his phone out of his pocket and checked his incoming messages. He was indeed given 10,000 as a reward. He was happy, but to tell the truth, this is not much. In the future, if Shaan works well, he will receive much more. In fact, for such a poor boy as he was in his previous life, such money can already be considered huge. Just as everyone was about to go home, suddenly there was a very loud sound from the corridor, as if someone was screaming. And after a few seconds, alarms were heard everywhere. Someone had broken into the data storage rooms. You need to immediately run there. Shaan first asked how well their security measures were in the information storage room. The director replied that this room is guarded around the clock. To break it you need to be a very capable person. Most likely, an ability user got in here. This office is right ahead. They need to look carefully. Suddenly they notice an employee who was lying on the floor, almost unconscious. The doors to the storage room were open. As it turned out, the guard actually lost consciousness, but fortunately his heart was still beating. He needed to be taken to the hospital. Now they should take this seriously. The enemy is somewhere nearby anyway. Sial wants to go first and check. the others should cover him. The hero asked why the director was so sure that the attacker was still in the building. He could have simply run away with the loot. Lishu explained to him that when the alarm goes off, the doors and windows of the entire building are immediately sealed, so no one can go outside. After a while, Sial returned. There was no one inside this room, but the villain stole very important information. It turned out that the villain knew how to steal other people's abilities. This time he used a technique that belonged to Lishu. Because of this, the thief was completely invisible to other people. Now he had the opportunity to attack from disguise. The scoundrel wanted to deal with Lishu first of all. He was sorry to take the life of such a beautiful girl, but he was still on a mission. The villain swung his huge dagger and was going to hit her so that everything would end as quickly as possible. But right at that moment, Shaan somehow managed to detect an invisible enemy. The guy tried to neutralize him with a kick. The hero turned out to be much faster than this thief. His attack was so strong that the man flew several meters back, and blood started coming out of his mouth. The guy ordered him to immediately throw the knife aside and not move, otherwise the scoundrel would die. He should come down to earth. His ability to steal other people's techniques won't work now. He just needs to accept defeat and give up. Lishu kept trying to understand how this villain managed to copy her special move. She had never encountered anything like this before. And Sial became even more interested in his new colleague. The hero somehow managed to see right through the enemy. The kidnapper, meanwhile, came to his senses a little and tried to find out how someone was able to reveal him. He used the disguise perfectly. And after that, the villain wanted to grab his knife once again, but the guy didn't let him do this. Now there's no point in playing such games. The enemy at that moment was completely confused. His superiors did not tell him that there were such strong fighters in this institution. In the end, he admits defeat and asks not to shoot at him. He understood everything and will no longer resist, just let him survive. However, as soon as the heroes hesitated, the scoundrel quickly took out a syringe with purple liquid from his pocket. He must complete the mission at any cost. In addition, the kidnapper understood perfectly well that these people would not let him go anywhere. In fact, he had nothing to lose. Lishu and the director reacted instantly. They fired 2 clips directly into the villain's body. At first glance, he had no chance of surviving. After that, everyone stood for several seconds in incredible tension. It was imperative to make sure that this villain died. At some point, his body began to change greatly. It became several times larger, and the drug acted even more aggressively than expected. Instantly, the ordinary kidnapper turned into a huge monster with a long tail. His mind was also very distorted. When this happened, the guy's system responded. It detected some information violations and offered to turn on the simulator. But so far the hero had no idea what all this meant. Apparently this time he would not be able to rely on his unique ability. The girl was very frightened at the sight of such a monster. She asked her elder if he could now use his technique. Sial replied that, unfortunately, his ability had too large a range to be used in such a room. Suddenly, the monster released a huge amount of poisonous acid from its mouth. The heroes managed to avoid this only at the last moment. Now there was no time to figure out what information this villain stole. First of all, they needed to destroy the creature in front of them. Shaan decides to take the initiative and is going to just go forward. He should deal with the mutant as quickly as possible. Lishu asks him to cool down a little. This creature is too dangerous to fight with him one-on-one. He needs to come up with some kind of plan. But the hero assures her that everything is fine with him. Now that he has enormous power, he is obliged to protect others. The guy immediately noticed that the creature was too big to fight him at full strength in an enclosed space. This needed to be taken advantage of. The best tactic would be to quickly close the distance. Fortunately Shaan is several times faster than his enemy. The hero rushed forward and immediately used his unique technique to materialize a pistol in his right hand. However, the mutant, in turn, had such strong skin that he was able to stop bullets simply with his hand. The guy decides that he needs to continue to reduce the distance while there is such an opportunity, and he also called a dagger into his hand. The monster tried to hit him with its huge tail, but fortunately Shaan managed to parry this attack with his knife. The villain was very surprised during the fight, because the hero did not have any outstanding abilities. He did everything on improvisation. At the same time, the mutant understood that he couldn't show fear for a second, so the thief threatened the guy that he would blow his head off if he approached even a meter. In fact, these threats turned out to be completely useless, because the hero instantly noticed his opponent's panic. His plan worked. The monster continued to threaten and insisted that his strength could not be compared with ordinary people. He needed to shake their confidence. Today, all these mortals would die by his hand anyway. Suddenly multiple projectiles began to burst out from the villain's body. They looked like pieces of flesh with very sharp edges. Their speed was incredible, but Shaan still managed to remain unharmed. The mutant still could not understand how an ordinary person managed to resist his attacks. This one should have ended in a few seconds. At some point, the guy saw an opportunity to attack. He threw his dagger with all his strength right at the monster's head. The weapon flew at the speed of sound, and the force of the throw was simply terrifying. The villain was able to dodge only at the last moment. Now the hero doesn't even have any weapons left in his hands, so it won't be difficult to deal with him. Now he'll die. The villain concentrated almost all his energy to strike with his tail, but the hero somehow miraculously managed to stop this attack with his bare hand. The monster couldn't believe his eyes. No mortal could survive such an attack, but this brat didn't even flinch. Shaan didn't even think about stopping. His strength was enough to finish off this creature even without the help of a weapon. At some point, the villain realizes that his opponent is too strong, such as he will in any case become a big problem for his organization. That is why the mutant now has no room for error. This guy definitely needs to get rid of as soon as possible. Moreover, he had a colossal physical advantage. The drugs in his body should help him in this fight. However, the villain could not even imagine that the hero had a special ability with which he could manipulate gravity. When the monster felt this special technique on himself, he was very confused. No one told him that there were such capable fighters here. Suddenly Shaan used gravity manipulation with his second hand. Don't forget that his dagger is still somewhere nearby. The force of gravity turned out to be simply colossal. The sharp knife pierced the mutant's tough skin and left a huge hole in him. The drugs in the villain's body were so powerful that he could still speak. In truth, he didn't even have a chance to win. Immediately after the fight, the hero felt his strength increase. The system reported that his level had increased to the 5th. Now he needs to use the next lottery ticket without his new colleagues suspecting anything. This time he got a flash shock bomb. The weapon was of a fairly low rank, but it was still better than nothing. Apparently he will need to increase more levels in order for new psychic abilities to appear in his arsenal. Suddenly the director turned to him and said that he finally understood everything, which is why the hero always behaves so confidently. Shaan wondered if Sial could also see these pop-ups. But does anyone have the ability to contact someone else's system? The man came closer and reassured the guy. He won't tell anyone about this. If he wants to remain in the shadows, so be it. The hero at that moment was even a little confused. The director behaved too strangely. Such enthusiasm was clearly unnecessary. In the end, Sial asked everyone to relax a little. After all, they managed to defeat a very dangerous enemy today. Now we need to get rid of the body. Lishu should go and call several people here. The mutant weighs at least a couple 100 kilograms. The guy became interested in what they would do next. The man invited him to go with him and see everything with his own eyes. Within a few minutes, the huge body of the monster lay on the table in the operating room, and surgeons were preparing to dissect it. The specialist used a special scalpel made of special steel, but even with such a tool it was not easy to pierce the hard skin. After several attempts, the man still manages to do it. What he saw inside caused him a severe shock. The internal part of the body was completely mutated, and there was not a single normal organ left in the body of this creature. This is truly incredible. A small jar of potion could turn an ordinary man into a terrible monster. A couple of such mutants can create a lot of problems. You may even have to ask for help from other organizations. After all, monsters have simply colossal physical strength. Shaan has been interested for quite a long time in the question of whose hands it was, who needed to steal important information from their storage. Sial explained that this is a very old story. The conflict cannot even be called a deadly rivalry. After all, such words convey too little the whole situation. The organization to which this thief belonged intends to destroy all of humanity. The members of the clan can with full confidence be called crazy. They do not even disdain murders and sacrifices. These people are heretics who use human deaths to revive their so-called god. Considering that such psychos are very common, human murders also occur with enviable regularity. Because of their countless crimes and terrible deeds, absolutely every state in the world is closely monitoring them. It seemed to the hero that this all looked like a stupid fairy tale, and the clan members were rather a bunch of stupid fanatics. Did the director know anything else about them? Unfortunately, despite the fact that the security service has been conducting an investigation for a long time, they have not yet had much success. Shaan remembered the monster he photographed in the last minutes of his past life. Maybe he has something to do with this. Perhaps there is a certain organizer behind all this. The guy asked Sial to inform him, if there is any news, he will help in this investigation. In fact, the man was very happy when he heard this. Now that they have such a strong friend, they can do anything. The hero recommended that the boss not place such hopes on him. He is just an ordinary person, he can die at any moment. The director laughed sharply, because an ordinary person cannot be dangerous like a death machine. It is obvious that the guy is simply hiding his capabilities. After that, Shaan finally wanted to go home. If there is no work for him today, then he will go to rest. It seemed that with every moment the hero's determination only grew. Each new ability is a small step on the path to retribution. Sial carefully watched his new employee. This man was clearly hiding something. It was better not to lose sight of him. Suddenly a girl turned to him and said that the security department had analyzed today's losses and compiled a report. This time the kidnapper was very close. No one had managed to get this far before. Their secret data could very well be stolen. The man asked the employee not to worry so much. Young people should always remain calm, otherwise they might make a mistake. Lishu actually couldn't stop worrying. If only she had incredible abilities like the others. Sial couldn't understand whether such a brave girl was suddenly afraid of some bastards, but in fact the employee was not at all afraid. If so, then she should go back to work. Now she needs to get as much information as possible about Shaan's parents. Lishu noted that they had already found out that these people had died long ago, even when the guy went to high school. If this is so, then we need to find out under what circumstances his parents died. Perhaps this information will provide some answers. Meanwhile, the hero arrived home and lay down on the bed, but he couldn't fall asleep. Too many thoughts were spinning in his head. At some point, he notices that something is happening in the window of the neighboring apartment where his girlfriend lives. The guy thought that the girl couldn't sleep either and wanted to say hello to her. Maybe this would at least distract him a little. But as soon as he approached the window, his entire body was paralyzed for several seconds due to incredible horror. Suddenly, a terrible ghost with long black hair appeared right in front of his face. This creature offered to connect their bodies. Shaan couldn't even lift a finger. He couldn't understand what was going on here and where this monster came from. At some point, the skeleton turned into an incredibly bright flash of light, which was accompanied by a very loud noise. He turned out to be so strong that the hero had to fall to his knees and try to cover his ears with his hands. He managed to come to his senses only after a few minutes. His nose was bleeding, and his head was pounding from unbearable pain. As soon as Shaan somehow got to his feet, he felt a sharp pain in his stomach, and then vomited. Suddenly, Shaan approached him from a neighboring apartment and asked her friend what happened to him and why he felt so bad. Shaan first warns his friend to escape as soon as possible, because there is a monster in her room. But the beauty was only surprised in response to this. There was no one else in her room and no monster caught her eye. Perhaps the guy just thought, judging by his appearance, he had health problems. Maybe he should see a doctor. In the end, the hero came to his senses and thought that he was simply overtired. Because of this he was imagining all sorts of nonsense. Shaan wishes his friend good night and asks him to go to sleep early today, and then closes the window. In fact, Shaan did not calm down at all. He remembered very well that Lishu saw a ghost in his room. This cannot be a coincidence. At the same time, the guy was too tired during the day, so he quickly fell asleep. Tomorrow he needs to ask the director about this. After this event, we are transported to the office of one editorial office, where the boss scolds the employees for poor work. After all, yesterday a lot of people died in a restaurant nearby, and not a single journalist managed to get at least some information. The girl's name was Jiang. From the conversations of the employees, it became clear that she behaved this way quite often, and another employee was delayed. At some point, the boss asks about the latecomer, does he really know that they have an important meeting today? The man tried to stand up for his colleague and explained that Guan worked in the office until late yesterday. Jiang, in turn, noticed that they all left work around midnight. This guy was clearly doing this on purpose to annoy the boss. After how many minutes the hero finally showed up for work, he sarcastically thanked the girl for being so worried about him. Such words angered the boss even more. How dare this brat mock her? If she wants, the guy will fly out of here like a traffic jam. Shaan reacted to this absolutely calmly. If the girl wants it so much, then let her do what she wants. Jiang was suddenly dumbfounded. Why could this employee allow himself to behave like this? Did he really have some connections in management? The hero, meanwhile, continued to provoke her. Let her scream as much as she wants. There is no need to hold back. The girl ordered the guy to immediately close his mouth. How did he have the courage to talk such nonsense? Did he really hit his head? Everything is actually fine with Shaan. Besides, he now has a bunch of photos from that very restaurant on his phone. The boss seemed to get an electric shock when she heard this. Not a single journalist could photograph anything where this guy took the photo. The only logical explanation was that someone powerful helped him, but perhaps the hero was just lucky. Shaan suddenly came closer and told Jiang that if she didn't believe him, then they could go to the scene of the incident together. At this moment, their conversation was interrupted by Li Jin. The woman had the position of director of the evening news. These two need to stop arguing immediately. The girl immediately began to make excuses and said that they were just discussing yesterday's events. Li Jin was primarily interested in photographs from a restaurant where a very high-profile incident had recently occurred. The hero politely handed his phone into the woman's hands. She can independently verify the authenticity of the pictures. Li Jin highly appreciated the guy's work. He managed to capture even the smallest details. He really did his best. Shaan thanked the boss for the praise and noted that some people were now complaining about his work. Jiang just seemed to him to be completely untalented, because only a loser like her would be unable to obtain information. Li Jin asked the girl to better watch her manners in the future, and the guy should go with her to her office. Shaan warned Jiang that if she dared to contradict him in the future, she would receive even more humiliation. He had nothing more to say. The girl could not believe that this upstart had more trump cards up his sleeve. Why did he suddenly begin to behave so impudently? In the end, Jiang was very upset. Apparently she had caused him trouble too often and had offended some idiot. The other employees couldn't even believe that such an arrogant girl like their boss could screw up like that. The guy smiled from ear to ear. He didn't expect it to be so pleasant. He probably needs to put insolent people in their place more often. The director asked the hero what made him so amused. After all, quite terrible things are happening in the world now. Is there really a reason to laugh? Shaan made excuses and said that the woman misunderstood everything. He just managed to humiliate a bad person. Li Jin warned the guy that Jiang could take revenge on him. After all, her father has enormous weight in their industry. In fact, the hero was absolutely calm. Since he had the courage to go against her, it means he is confident in himself. Since this is the case, the woman doesn't mind at all. Shaan has done an excellent job, and if he continues in the same spirit, he will achieve success. Despite this, she had a resignation letter on her desk. Li Jin wanted to understand why the guy decided to leave now. The hero explained that something had happened to his family and he was afraid that he would not be able to continue to do his job well. However, Li Jin did not believe him. Rich youth like him often leave with such excuses. Did Shaan think about doing what he loved? In fact, the guy just wanted to make fun of Jiang, because she really pissed him off. He didn't think it would go that far. The director considers the hero very capable and talented. If he suddenly wants to stay, they can reconsider his contract. Since this is the case, Shaan is ready to think about his decision, but he should not rejoice ahead of time. He must first read the contract. The company is ready to offer the guy a flexible schedule and absolutely any resources he needs to realize his potential. The hero really liked this offer. This contract was completely restructured for him and seemed to have been prepared in advance. However, Li Jin had one important condition. If he finds out something very serious, he must immediately report everything to the editor. Shaan fully agrees to such a rule. With such support from the organization, it will not be difficult for him to complete any work. As it turned out, the director was able to prepare this agreement in advance only thanks to Xiao Shen. but how could they meet? The hero's girlfriend came to their office last night and warned that the guy might submit his resignation. Li Jin didn't want that. Shaan assumed that the girl began to worry about him because of yesterday's incident, so she decided to help somehow. The director hinted to the guy that he should take more care of his girlfriend. After all, she is very kind and caring. Shaan tried to prove that he and Xiao Shun were not really in a relationship, just good friends. Li Jin honestly doesn't care. If the issue is resolved, then he should return to work as soon as possible. She already has a lot to do. The hero finally thanked the boss again and was about to leave, but at that moment some loud noise was heard outside the door. And a second later the light went out in the entire building. It was all very strange. The situation became more and more tense every minute. Suddenly one of the workers runs into their office and reports that the electricity has been turned off throughout the area. Li Jin asked to tell all employees to stay in their places and not wander around. They need to maintain order. The director will try to settle everything on his own. The man replied that he understood everything and would immediately give the order to all journalists. At one point, Shaan notices a strange feeling in his body, as if a primal instinct was telling him that someone was watching him. Literally a few moments after this, some strange violet energy began to thicken in the room. Someone tried to kill Li Jin. She managed to survive only thanks to the hero, who pushed her away at the last moment and saved her from the blow. The man who happened to be in this office now was very frightened. He had never seen such things. This worker was truly unlucky. An ability user appeared right in front of his eyes, and he did not need witnesses. The monster managed to kill an innocent man with one wave of his hand, after which the villain ordered the guy to get out of the way. The woman was no less frightened. She could not believe that the people pursuing her had actually sent an esper. Li Jin ordered the hero to get out of here immediately. This creature came for her. There is no point in dying because of her mistakes. However, Shaan had no intention of running away anywhere. He is an ordinary mutant who mocks the weak and fears the strong. So why does he need to leave? All his life he has despised such creatures who abuse their abilities. The director couldn't believe that the same guy she knew was standing in front of her. His behavior had really changed too much. At some point, the woman had the idea in her head that the hero had also become one of the users of abilities. The monster couldn't believe that this arrogant brat expected to win. His poor strength would never be enough. Therefore, the villain wants to finish off the upstart as soon as possible. He hoped to deal with him with one blow. The mutant rushed at the hero and turned his hands into razor-sharp blades, but Shaan was able to easily dodge. After that, the monster became a little interested. This man managed to evade his blow twice. Was he really from the military? Shaan, in turn, for some reason could not activate his system. Perhaps this is due to the fact that there is no serious threat to him. The villain gives him one last chance. If the guy gets out of his way right now, he can count on a quick death. In fact, the hero is already quite fed up with these stupid conversations. The stupid mutant just needs to shut his mouth and fight. Shaan punched his enemy in the stomach with all his strength, but for some reason his hand went straight through the monster. When this happened, the villain laughed sharply. This brat still doesn't know much about his abilities, let him consider it a surprise. It turned out that this creature is completely invulnerable while it is in pitch darkness, so now it is completely inaccessible. Fortunately, the guy had an ability with which he did not cause any special damage, but could immobilize the enemy. The hero used gravity control, after which the mutant was completely paralyzed and could not even move a finger. In fact, this scoundrel is incredibly stupid. How did he even have the intelligence to tell his opponent about the secret of his special ability? Now Shaan had a huge advantage. He had a flashbang grenade with him just for such an occasion. The hero threw the weapon directly towards the paralyzed enemy, and advised the woman to close her eyes and cover her ears. Immediately after this, the entire room was filled with an incredibly bright light and a very loud explosion. I wonder what this mutant will do now. As soon as the light dissipated, the powerful ability user disappeared, and in his place appeared an ordinary overweight man. This man first started calling the hero a bastard. How dare he use a flashbang grenade against him? But in fact, it seemed like a trifle to him. Anyway, his physical strength is much greater than that of this weakling. Therefore, the villain put all his strength into his right hand and hit Shaan directly in the face. The man hoped to knock out his opponent. But the guy, in turn, didn't even change his facial expression. is that really all this scoundrel is capable of? He is much better at talking than fighting. If he decides to come here and harm Li Jin again, then he should not beg for mercy. The villain at that moment hated with all his heart the idiots in charge of intelligence. Why didn't they report to him about such a strong fighter? After that, the man hardly knelt down and asked for mercy. He was just doing his job. He was paid to kill a woman. Li Jin couldn't believe her eyes how the hero managed to defeat such a strong opponent, and with such ease. He clearly has secrets. Soon, one of the workers called the police and handcuffed the scoundrel. He had better not even think about resistance. These shackles are sensitive to abilities. The police officer thanked the guy for his help. If not for his actions, innocent people could have suffered. It turned out that this mutant was one of the participants in that cult. They were called espers. Now Shaan must sign non-disclosure documents. When it was all over, the hero approached the president and advised her to calm down. In fact, the danger was already over. Li Jin suggested that this guy clearly has connections in the government. She must definitely win him over to her side. The woman once again thanked Shaan for her help. She really wanted to somehow reward her savior. Just let him say what he wanted. The hero immediately noticed that the boss was behaving too strangely. Did she really have some secrets? Li Jin actually doesn't want to talk about it, but since he asked Shaan, he should tell him everything. In any case, this is somehow connected with the attack. The hero assumed that the director managed to anger the cult members. The guy saw great concern on Li Jin's face. In fact, there is no reason for such behavior. He can protect her in any case. The woman collected her thoughts for a few more seconds and was finally ready to tell the whole truth about this terrible clan. It all started a few years ago when the director went to a remote village to investigate an incident with an esper. It was during this task that Li Jin managed to uncover a terrible secret. These people were kidnapping children and trafficking them. The villagers tried to grab her, but the woman managed to escape and called the police as soon as she was safe. However, the director did not have any evidence with him, and they could have falsified other people's memories. The police were unable to open a case. Shaan asked if perhaps this group of people has some kind of name. Maybe the police are not able to cope with them. Li Jin tried to remember something, but to no avail. She only heard that they were sometimes called killer bees. At this moment, the hero seemed to be scalded with boiling water, and here he crossed paths with this gang. Perhaps they kidnap children and turn them into mutants. Over the past 2 years, members of this cult tried to kill the woman several times. She did not expect that today they would send another killer. The guy tried to reassure his boss. Since this esper had been noticed, the Special Security Service would definitely take some measures. In the near future, these scoundrels will not dare to attack her again, and in any case, the special services will come to the rescue. Li Jin asked the hero if she could contact him if she had problems again. After all, the director was just a woman looking for support. Any person in her place would be no less frightened. The director will not allow Shaan to help her just like that. He will definitely receive a reward. Now it will be impolite for the guy to refuse, and besides, if he can get paid for it, he will achieve his goals faster. Therefore, the hero asks his boss to call him at any time. If the woman needs help, he will do everything in his power. After a while, Lishu came up to them. In her hand were the papers that Li Jin had to sign. This is a non-disclosure agreement. Shaan was a little surprised why the girl was not on a mission now. Did they seriously send her here for paperwork? In fact, she was already quite tired of constant missions. If she worked at this pace, she could go crazy. Lishu asked if the director of the editorial office and her acquaintance knew each other. She never expected that the guy had been working here for quite a long time. Since the woman is a witness, she has the right to know that her employee is also a member of the security department. At this moment, Li Jin suddenly understood why the hero wanted to quit. Most likely he had some kind of secret mission. Therefore, it is better for her to cooperate with the intelligence services. The woman promises to sign all non-disclosure papers. In the end, everything was settled. Now the director needs to go about his business. The heroes went out into the street and began to say goodbye. Suddenly Shaan runs up to them and loudly calls Shaan. She looked quite worried, as if something had happened to her. In fact, the girl was just very worried when she found out about what happened. The hero needs to take better care of his life. The guy immediately began to calm his girlfriend down. He still fights very well. Everything will definitely be fine with him. Despite this, the beauty still continued to hold on tightly to Shaan. She would worry about him anyway. At some point, Shaan finally calmed down and came to her senses a little, and the hero once again promised to be careful. Now that there is nothing left to do here, Shaan is ready to head to the security office with his colleague. Moreover, Sial just wanted to see him. The man called the guy over and wanted to tell him something interesting. The hero became very interested and immediately went to the boss's office. The new information concerned his parents. Yesterday, the director was looking through his relatives' files and was able to find something unusual. Shaan should definitely know this. When the guy listened to his boss, he couldn't believe it. His whole body seemed to be paralyzed due to incredible shock. Sial asked his colleague to calm down a little. He shouldn't take things too seriously. This is, of course, very difficult to believe, but the hero's parents worked in a division of the organization they are fighting against. Shaan could not control himself. This simply cannot be. How could mom and dad work for these scoundrels? The man sharply asked him to be silent for a while, because in fact he had not finished yet. He should listen to the end. The hero considered it just a huge mistake. His parents would never do such terrible things. It just doesn't fit in his head. In truth, the guy should not make hasty conclusions. This information in no way proves the involvement of relatives in the sect. After all, the organization had grown to enormous proportions. It had countless subsidiaries, and his mother and father worked in one of these. Shaan now seemed to understand why his parents didn't tell him what they were doing. They just wanted to protect him. The man had a theory that it was the sect that was behind the accident that killed the guy's father and mother. In fact, the hero already knew who was responsible for the death of his relatives, but now it's better for him not to tell the director about it. Sial asked the guy not to focus too much on this. The Special Security Service will definitely find these villains. But that was not all. Now the man was going to show Shaan something else interesting. They need to go to another place. The heroes went to the laboratory, where in a test tube there was an emblem with a bee, which was taken from the body of the thief who snuck into the room with the information. More and more evidence indicated that killer bees and the cult were working together. According to the service's investigation, this scenario was the most likely. The director suddenly asked Shaan if he really decided to help them in order to help Lishu get to the bottom of the truth. The hero immediately confirmed the words of his boss. This is a completely unusual case, so why don't the special services do anything? To be honest, it's not that they don't want to act, it's just that all the residents of that very village are under the control of a special ability. If they start attacking the plan, they could kill innocent people. Now it's better to watch what's happening for a while. The first step should be taken when the moment is right for this. There is no other option yet. They are hostages of the situation. Shaan finally decided to ask Sial a question that had been bothering him for a long time. It concerned that terrible ghost in his house. The director wondered why the guy was asking about this. Had he really encountered supernatural things? The hero described in detail the whole situation with the skeleton in his room. Besides, this monster was near his girlfriend. What could this mean? Sial suggested that these could be illusions created by special abilities. Shaan should take this detector. He can detect the remaining energy from any ability that was used recently. The guy thanked the boss and hurried home. The man is only happy to help. If the hero has any problems, he can call him at any time of the day. Sial is already quite tired of all these paranormal things. How can there be so many secrets in this world? The man leaned back in his chair and dozed off a little. Suddenly a drop of some liquid fell on his forehead. Because of this he instantly woke up. The first thing the director thought was that the roof in his office was leaking, but this was unlikely, since it was not raining outside. He tried to wipe the liquid with his hand. It turned out to be red. Now there was no doubt that it was blood. But what does this even mean? Where could it come from here? At some point, Sial looks up and freezes in horror. Right now, hanging over him was the same ghost that Shaan had told him about. He had exactly the same incredibly long black hair. The director came to his senses a little and asked who she was and how she got here, while his entire body remained completely paralyzed. The man already thought that he was going to die, but after a while the terrible ghost simply dissipated. Not a trace remained of him. But instead of him, Shaan appeared. The boss knew who this girl was, but where did she get such an ability and why did she do it? The beauty did not answer that question, but simply ordered Sial not to interfere in her family's affairs under any circumstances, otherwise he would die. The director tried to find out at least some information from her, but the girl again did not answer anything and disappeared into thin air. Suddenly the man seemed to wake up from a terrible nightmare. In truth, it is difficult to say whether he saw all this in a dream or in reality. The hero, meanwhile, returned to his home. Now that he has a detector, he will be able to find out the truth about his pursuer. To do this, you just need to press a button, and the guy also covered all the windows in his room so that no one would bother him. When the device was activated, an unusual red energy began to emerge from it. It is this energy that can recognize traces of someone else's equipment. Within a couple of seconds, Shaan noticed an ominous dark aura next to him, similar to fog. This is exactly what he was looking for. After that, the guy followed the trail and found a strange backpack among his things. This thing definitely did not belong to him. When he unzipped it, he found a rather gloomy doll inside. He had no idea how this thing ended up in his home. This thing is even scary to touch, so the hero used his psychic technique. The doll is really just disgusting. If you look into her bottomless eyes for a long time, you can go crazy. At least that's the impression her appearance gave. As it turned out, right now two strangers were watching Shaan's house. One of them suggested taking action. However, the second one ordered him to shut up immediately. They need to leave now, but how can they return without the trophy? The leader will kill them. It didn't really matter, it was still better than being killed. Didn't the first stranger see that he was in possession of this guy's body? The hooded people couldn't even determine what it was, but it clearly had incredible power. They couldn't risk it. When those two ran away, all the energy disappeared from the sharp doll. Now it was the most ordinary plastic trinket. Just a couple of minutes later, his friend knocked on Shaan's house and asked if she could come visit. The hero hurried to open the door. In fact, he was glad to see Shaan. They should have some tea. She must have had a hard day. The beauty was a little surprised. Her friend was in great danger today, but at the same time she looked as if nothing had happened at all. The guy assured that all this was nothing. Such nonsense could never harm him. He was ready to fight his enemies every day. Shaan even laughed a little at this answer. Shaan, as always, is an incorrigible optimist. He was like that during their school life. Suddenly the girl stopped laughing and apologized. She shouldn't have remembered those sad moments, because it was in high school that the hero lost his parents. In fact, she doesn't need to worry so much. The guy isn't that fragile. To be honest, he trusts his girlfriend more than any other person. After all, if it weren't for her support, it would have been much more difficult for him to get through those difficult times. The beauty promises to be with him in any situation. At some point, they both realize that they are behaving just like a couple in love. Perhaps their feelings are really special. This situation made Shaan a little embarrassed. He tried to change the conversation and said that he would not return to the office again. The president has already told Shaan everything about this. Now Jiang will no longer cause him trouble. The guy would happily look at this fool. It was already very late on the street, and the girl still needs to do something. She asks her friend not to stay too long and hurries home. Chatting with Shaan always cheered up the hero. In his previous life he was not good company for her. Now he wants to fix that. By the way, Shaan never invited his girlfriend to visit. It always slipped my mind. I definitely need to do it next time. At the same time, the guy should not forget that for a quiet life he first needs to destroy the organization. All that remains is to wait a little. After this, the events are transferred to the next day. The hero was standing on the street and waiting for someone. Right now this person appeared. As it turned out, it was Lishu. She was a little late and apologized for this. From her appearance it became clear that the girl was in a hurry. Shaan couldn't understand why it took his friend so long to get here. Didn't she know the way? This actually turned out to be true. It's just that Lishu is usually only at home and at the security service, so he doesn't know the city well. But she is an employee of a special service, and at the same time she cannot even navigate well in space. The girl said that this is not so, and in general this smart guy needs to talk less. The captain asked her to spy on one company and conduct a small investigation. Now they are right in front of the main building of this organization. It was a huge modern skyscraper, so big that people looked like ants against its background. Lishu told her colleague all the information she managed to find. The company was engaged in medical services. Apparently, This is a high-tech medical company that develops medicine for the benefit of people. However, secretly from the rest of the world, they carried out many illegal experiments on living people, and many died at their hands. The girl also managed to find out that the leaders of this organization are closely connected with a gang of killer bees. As soon as Lishu finished speaking, she noticed how angry the hero was. He looked a little scary. Apparently now the company has big problems. And when Shaan clarified what exactly they should do, the girl was even a little scared. She was really a little cowardly. It turned out that the captain received information that members of this organization were engaged in illegal activities. These are not some kind of robberies or scams. These people are actually cold-blooded killers, which is why they were entrusted with this job. Now you need to infiltrate the company and get some evidence. This will require you to act very secretly. Shaan wanted to know why the girl did not go on this mission alone, because it would have been much easier to do so. It turned out that Lishu was a little afraid, because if it came to a fight, she would not be able to fight one-on-one. The hero couldn't believe that everyone in the security department perceived him as some kind of brawler. In fact, he shouldn't take it too personally. In the end, the guy has nowhere to go, so he is ready to completely obey his colleague. Just let him not get in the way during the fight. The girl has already come up with a scenario in which Shaan can play the role of a person who wants to get a job in the company. They were immediately greeted by a worker and asked how she could help them, and the guy replied that he had come here for an interview. He was interested in the position of a research assistant. The secretary also asked about Lishu, but the girl replied that she was just an escort. The woman immediately thought that these two were dating. In fact, it is very cute when partners support each other. Lishu was very embarrassed when she heard this. She began to make excuses and claimed that they were just friends. In the end, the girl even got a little angry. Of course no one would believe her. Now they need to go up to the second floor. While they were riding in the elevator, Shaan praised his colleague for her excellent acting, but most likely Lishu was not pretending. She is actually quite shy. Now that they have reached the desired floor, they will most likely have to split up. The guy will go to meet with the interviewer. It seemed to the girl that the hero was bragging like that. It felt like he said this on purpose, but it's hard to argue with that. Since this is the case, Lishu will go to an inconspicuous place and use his unique ability so that no one will discover it. A regular restroom would be best. After a few seconds, her special invisibility was successfully activated. As soon as Shaan entered the desired office, his attention was attracted by a very strange smell that filled the entire room. He thought for a few seconds, but in the end there was no doubt left. It was definitely the smell of blood. The interviewer turned out to be a pretty young girl with red hair. She asked the hero to come closer and sit next to her. The guy immediately noticed that this woman had a strong smell of blood. Most likely she often comes into contact with her. The employee explained to him that their requirements for a new colleague are not strict, but they have one very important condition. Shaan is ready to listen carefully to everything that is needed. It turned out that after receiving the position he must help researchers. His job will be to test new drugs. The hero, in turn, noted that such actions are illegal. The interviewer replied that their company is completely legal, and the medications they produce are absolutely safe for humans. The hero was ready for anything, so he asked the woman not to lie to him. He can be persistent when the situation requires it. The employee could not understand what was wrong with this person. She felt very anxious and constrained next to him. In order to convince Shaan of her words, she invited him to go with her to the laboratory, where he could see everything with his own eyes. In fact, the worker just wanted to lure him into a trap. As soon as the guy entered the right room, he would be completely in her hands. It was a treatment room. The hero calmly opened the doors and went inside. The woman invited him to watch the process. And after that, the interviewer turned to the doctor and said that a new candidate had come to them for examination. They should deal with him right now. This doctor's name was Lee. He looked like a middle-aged man with very long gray hair, and he also had glasses. At that moment, Shaan pretended to be a fool and pretended that he didn't understand anything. Did he really need to undergo a medical examination to get a job? Suddenly a woman came close to him and pushed him straight onto the chair next to him. She was acting too strange, and she assured the hero that this was a simple blood test. They simply needed to make sure that their new employee was not sick with some serious disease. After a few minutes, the interviewer leaves. now this person is at Dr. Lee's complete disposal, the specialist must do his job. The man immediately understood everything and quickly put on medical gloves. It won't take much time, after all, he is a real professional. First of all, the doctor picked up an empty syringe and asked the guy to roll up one of his sleeves. Everything would happen quickly. Shaan tried to understand why these people needed his blood. Were they really trying to find a drug that would suit him specifically? Dr. Lee was somehow able to determine that the hero is completely healthy and very strong. Now he needs to rest while the doctor does a test. The guy looked around. Everything looked normal in this office, which means the secrets of this company are hidden in other rooms. If you think like that, then his body should be different after waking up, so if the doctor lies, then the hero will immediately reveal this imposter. After some time, Lishu decides to act. While her colleagues successfully diverted attention to himself, she had an opportunity. We need to take advantage of the moment and get inside the secret room that Dr. Lee was heading to right now. It immediately became noticeable that the man was behaving very secretively. He was constantly looking around. It looked like they were hiding something there. The path to the secret laboratory took quite a long time. To get there you need to go down the steps for a long time. The room was very deep underground. When the doctor and the girl got there, the doctor announced that they had a new sample. The main thing here was a man named Richard. He ordered to first check this blood. You need to make sure that it is suitable for the experiment. Dr. Lee, in turn, assured that the guy to whom she belongs is very strong and absolutely healthy, so there shouldn't be any problems. The man pulled the stopper out of the test tube and poured the liquid directly into a huge gilded cauldron. He treated this vessel as if it were a living person. Lishu stood nearby all this time and watched what was happening. This jug for some reason caused her incredible disgust. At some point, a very strange and vile red substance began to appear from the cauldron. It was difficult to even say what was happening inside. A few seconds later, the shapeless mass simply exploded. A huge clot of flesh and blood scattered throughout the room. When this happened, the men looked incredibly happy. The blood of this test subject was simply incredible. Even their god could not stand it. From their conversation, it became clear that they definitely belonged to that same cult. Now they most of all want to capture Shaan. Richard first contacted his charges and ordered them to bring the hero to his secret laboratory as soon as possible. Lishu instantly realized that they wanted to conduct experiments on her colleague. He must be warned. The guy, meanwhile, sat calmly on a chair and wondered whether his girlfriend managed to get the necessary information. Suddenly, the doors to his room were knocked down by two huge men. They were clearly looking for Shaan and were hostile. The hero was only a little surprised when he saw this. In fact, he was counting on much more serious opponents. The thugs politely turned to the guy and asked him to come with them. He had better not argue, otherwise it would only get worse. Shaan had no intention of leaving anywhere, who even gave these two monkeys the right to command the candidates. At that moment, the man realized that now a fight is inevitable. If this brat wants it bad, then it will be bad. The hero immediately ordered him to watch his tongue. Even though it looks huge, he should not underestimate other people. The guy was able to easily dodge his opponent's blow, and after that he immediately counterattacked and hit one of the thugs with his knee right in the stomach. The blow was so strong that the man flew several meters back and hit the wall. The second enemy was immediately confused. In the end, the big guy decides not to tempt fate and promises to leave right now. Shaan can do whatever he wants, just don't beat him. This guy looks intimidating, and the man's salary is only 3,000 yuan a month. He clearly shouldn't risk his life for such pennies. Having dealt with the two thugs, the hero went into the corridor. Suddenly someone turned to him from behind. Now this was already an ability user. This man was confident that Shaan would easily defeat those two. Now he would have to do everything himself. The guy had met a lot of arrogant people in his life, but he had never seen such a smug fool. The villain noticed that the hero loves to talk, but whether he can also fight well, they should find out. All this time, several small hooded figures stood next to the man. Shaan could not understand whether he would really set a bunch of children on him. As you might have guessed, these creatures in long robes are not children at all. They are definitely part of some special ability. The man wanted to demonstrate his subordinates clearly. In one motion he removed the robes from the heads of the small creatures. The hero was shocked when he saw their faces. Were these scumbags really capable of such terrible acts? The villain called them the blessed chosen ones. From the appearance of these creatures one could understand that they used to be ordinary children. The guy really wanted to make sure of his guess. He asked the man if their organization really uses people as experimental subjects. The scoundrel looked very pleased and asked not to talk about it so negatively. In fact, they are giving these beggars a chance for a second life. Shaan still found it difficult to believe that people were capable of such terrible acts. Weren't they afraid of fair punishment? The villain just laughed when he heard this. They have connections in every state. No one in this world can harm them. The man set his subordinates against the guy. They need to catch him as quickly as possible, but he must stay alive. The hero was so angry that he decided not to restrain himself. He activated his system and was about to use the simulator. He had never wanted to kill someone as badly as he did this bastard. Such vile scoundrels simply did not deserve to live. Suddenly, small dolls began to turn into huge mutants. They very much resembled that thief from the security department. In addition, the user of the abilities himself turned into a terrible monster with many sharp teeth. Shaan decides that now it is better to keep his distance from these mutants, so he materializes a pistol in his hand. These monsters have turned unfortunate children into terrible monsters. Now we need to end their suffering as soon as possible. The creatures turned out to be very dexterous and fast. Despite their huge size, they moved incredibly sharply. Fortunately, the hero had suitable equipment with him. Using gravity control, he was going to detain them. But he didn't succeed. For some reason these creatures could not be controlled. Perhaps their level was much higher. At some point, one of the mutants very quickly hit with his tail. The guy did not have time to dodge this attack, and now his hand is wounded. The puppeteer teased Shaan and said that he was not that strong. Now it was better for him to fall to his knees and pray for mercy. The guy assumed that he was unable to hold back two targets at once, as his gravity control was still too low. However, now there was no time for reasoning. The huge mutants continued to attack. We need to come up with a plan of action. At some point, when the monster's sharp claws were just a few centimeters from the hero's head, he suddenly learned a new blow. It was a strong gravitational explosion that looked like a huge ball of concentrated energy. It attracted enemies to itself. Unfortunately, now Shaan had spent so much energy that his body began to malfunction, and he had a very bad headache. The situation was getting worse and worse every minute. Although a new blow was able to push back the mutants, they were still in full combat readiness. However, the hero was not even going to give up. Since gravity and firearms do not work, then it is necessary to conduct close combat. The next moment, the guy rushed forward and instantly summoned his dagger. Today he simply has no right to defeat. The melee weapon actually turned out to be very effective. The hero managed to cut off the monster's head with one blow. The main villain was very scared and ordered the two remaining puppets to immediately finish off this man. But the hero could no longer be stopped. He again showed resourcefulness and combined gravity control with his dagger. Thanks to this, he was able to throw the bladed weapon with incredible speed, and now the second mutant also ended his suffering. The last monster tried to strike with its tail, but Shaan was able to easily block this blow. This poor fellow also did not have much time left. The next moment, the hero hit with his fist with all his might and pierced the remaining mutant through and through, and on this note it all ended for them. The system informed him that the level had been raised to 7th, and he also had access to a new ability to find weak points. However, they are not finished yet. Now they need to finish off the main villain. He will never be able to leave here alive. The system reported that this enemy has a weak point. It is located right in the huge mouth. You need to hit it there. The mutant tried to make excuses and said that he was simply brainwashed. Didn't he really deserve another chance? The guy didn't even want to listen to him. Did this idiot really count on a second attempt? And what about those children whom they mutilated? Did they really not deserve pardon? Now the villain is finally convinced of his helplessness. Shaan is much stronger. His special ability turned out to be completely useless. At this moment, Lishu came running to them. She managed to find enough evidence. Now they can leave here. The monster saw this as a chance for salvation. Apparently he had some kind of technique with which he could move between bodies. Suddenly, a terrible ghost in the shape of a skull flew out of his huge mouth. This is how he manages to transfer the soul to another organism. The evil spirit was absorbed into the body of the unfortunate girl. At that moment she was completely paralyzed and could not resist. After a few seconds, Lishu completely lost control of her body and was now controlled by another person. The scoundrel immediately appreciated all the beauty of the girl. He always wanted to be in the body of some beauty. It was very pleasant. Shaan ordered him to immediately explain what he did to his girlfriend. He had better take it back as soon as possible. The villain said that if he tries to kill him, then Lishu will die, and if he doesn't want this, then he should go to the secret laboratory. The guy must behave obediently and not create problems, otherwise his girlfriend will get seriously hurt. He doesn't want that, right? Suddenly the scoundrel felt that the girl was trying to resist. Although she was a little cowardly, she had no lack of willpower. However, this was still not enough. Her body was still under the control of the scoundrel. She needed to behave more calmly. Lishu was able to return for a few seconds and immediately grabbed the gun. Shaan should not be led by emotions. He should kill the villain anyway. This only lasted a few seconds. Now the scoundrel was controlling her body again. Did this fool really want to die? The hero is obliged to save his girlfriend. This is an excellent reason to test his new ability. At this moment he activated the search for weak points. The system immediately responded and showed that that same evil spirit in the shape of a skull was now in the girl's stomach. The guy, with a very quick and deft movement, applied gravity control directly to this point. The black fog began to leave Lishu's body. Now all that remains for Shaan is to completely take control of this monster. He will definitely be able to save her and destroy the scoundrel. In the last seconds of his life, the mutant showed his true appearance. He looked like a terrible demon with huge horns. The creature begged for mercy. It even promised to tell all the secrets of this company, but the hero was not going to stop for a second. After a moment the spirit exploded. There is no need to listen to this nonsense. By the way, this one was considered the boss. Now Shan's strength level has been raised to 8. And now he also has a blueprint for a new weapon. This is a black iron sniper rifle. It has little ammunition, but deadly power. First of all, the guy helped his colleague to her feet. She looked pretty tired, but it seemed like she was okay. Now they have all the evidence. The girl really wants to leave this terrible place. They need to get out of here as soon as possible. The hero asked Lishu if she could use her invisibility. The answer was positive. If this is really the case, then the girl should return first. Shaan still needs to finish some important things. His colleague didn't even believe at first whether he was really going to return to this disgusting laboratory. It was too dangerous. But the guy simply cannot leave everything as it is. He is filled with hatred. He must kill the bastard who is behind all this. From Lishu he learned where this secret laboratory was located. The hero went straight there as soon as possible. He confidently opened the doors. The first person he met inside was Richard. Now there was no doubt that the man was in charge here. The scoundrel greeted Shaan with a wide smile. How good it was that a member of the Special Security Service came to visit him. Suddenly the villain activated his unique technique. It was the all-seeing eye, so Richard could see what others could not. He was impressed after what he saw. It is not surprising that the flesh of their god could not withstand the blood of this guy. Previously, he had never been able to see a person who was filled with such pure and pristine energy. The hero ordered him to immediately explain everything that was happening here, who specifically gave the orders to kidnap the children. It immediately became clear that it was Richard who controlled everything here. The man believed that he simply gave homeless children a chance for a new life. All the same, people are too weak and vulnerable, and he is the new god of this world, who helps the poor develop and become stronger. Shaan thought that this villain was simply crazy. Could a person really turn into such a monster? The scoundrel, meanwhile, did not seem to listen to him at all. He continued to talk to himself and enjoyed the beauty of madness. At some point, the man extended his hand forward and invited the hero to join their organization. Together they could build a new world. The guy immediately refused such an offer. A monster like this man should immediately go to the very depths of hell. Richard was very upset when he heard the answer. After all, this brat has incredible potential. It would be a shame to kill him. But he is simply left with no choice. The villain took out a submachine gun and started firing at Shaan. This scoundrel is simply crazy. Fortunately, thanks to increasing levels, the guy now has a special gravitational shield in his arsenal, which can be used to deflect bullets. As it turned out, these cartridges are unusual. Each of them is filled with Richard's energy, so it is very difficult to reflect such a powerful blow. The villain, meanwhile, with a crazy face, continued to shoot. After he kills the hero, he will cut off his head, and then examine him up and down. And perhaps even Shaan will get a unique opportunity to watch how small children turn into terrible monsters. When the hero heard this, he completely lost his temper. This bastard will definitely answer for all his actions. He managed to completely deflect the last few bullets, causing them to fly back in the direction of Richard. As a result, there was probably a strong explosion. If the villain is an ordinary person, then the fight should have ended there. But unfortunately, this man is not at all simple. At some point he even managed to fire the last cartridge, which wounded Shan's hand. The smoke from the explosion gradually cleared, and eventually the silhouette of the villain became visible. He was seriously wounded, but still alive. Moreover, his wounds are very serious. Although Richard tried to pretend that everything was fine with him, it was obvious that he would not be able to fight. The guy understood this perfectly and ordered him to shut up. He should sit quietly in place and answer his questions. The man, in turn, just laughed. He can do whatever he wants with him, but he will not hear any information from his lips. The hero knew that this scoundrel was a high-ranking leader. Perhaps he knew where the Black Wolf was who killed Shan's parents. But in fact, the guy won't be upset even if he just kills Richard. After all, he can't afford to leave someone like him alive. Suddenly, the hero hit the villain's leg with his sharp dagger with all his strength. This bastard felt the pain very well. In just a few seconds, all the arrogant smile disappeared from his face, and Richard was now screaming in pain like a beaten dog. If the villain does not want to feel this again, then he should answer all questions, whether he understands it or not. Richard also dared to call Shaan a sick freak. How dare he show such disrespect? Doesn't he really know who he's dealing with? The hero was very tired of listening to this chatter. In the end he put a knife to the man's throat and again asked him about the Black Wolf. However, the villain again did not answer. He would have to come up with something more serious if he wanted to get any information out of him. Now the guy had no choice and once again made a deep cut on Richard's leg. The scoundrel underestimated his resourcefulness. Since Shaan can't let him bleed out, his wounds should be treated. They can continue like this for the whole day. Now the guy will stop the bleeding over and over again, and immediately after that he will make new wounds. Richard is able to stop this only by opening his mouth. Now he has his last chance. If the man tells everything he knows about the Black Wolf, he can avoid such a fate. As a result, the villain broke down. From his face one could understand that he was very scared. In fact, Richard is just a pawn and he doesn't know anything. The hero didn't believe it and hit the scoundrel in the stomach with all his strength with a dagger. Now he will feel what it's like to be cut into pieces. The man could not believe that the Special Security Service could take in such a monster. He had never encountered such a thing before. Shaan could not understand how this idiot had the courage to call others monsters. Did he really not feel sorry for those unfortunate children? If Richard does not want to talk, then his suffering will continue right now. In the end the man gave up and wants to tell everything he knows. He knows that the Black Wolf is not in this city now, but he will be here in 2 weeks. His goal is to create a stir in order to attract the attention of the authorities. If you think about it, in the hero's past life there were riots right at this time. It turns out that the Black Wolf was to blame for everything. In fact, this was all that this scoundrel knows about this man. Now the guy is obliged to spare him. They agreed. Shaan is finally tired of listening to the ravings of a madman. Such scoundrels simply do not deserve to walk along with the rest on earth. With one blow, the hero cut off Richard's head. Finally the man will be able to atone for his own sins. Besides, they only agreed that his suffering would end. He had hurt too many innocent people. Now it's the Black Wolf's turn. Shaan promises that he will cut this creature into small pieces and avenge his parents. After this event, we are taken to a dungeon where a hooded man is sitting. Right now a subordinate has arrived to him with a report. The man reported that their man, whom they had left in the city, had died. He was killed by an awakened soldier with incredible abilities. The leader was surprised, because there were several mutated servants there. An ordinary soldier is not able to penetrate there. This is definitely the work of the special services. The ward denied this guess. There was only one attacker. He got inside and independently destroyed everyone in the office. The hooded man became very interested. Is there really such a skilled fighter in this worthless town? We need to fight him. The man threw something towards his boss. he should take it with him when he goes in search of their enemy. This man turned out to be a black wolf. The villain skillfully caught a small thing. If the beast chases the prey, then it will never be able to get away. Shaan, meanwhile, sat in the security department and thought that although he managed to destroy that organization, this was only the tip of the iceberg. By the way, he completely forgot about the lottery ticket that he received as a reward for increasing his level. He needs to use it as soon as possible. He received an item of the highest class, which was called the Awakened Harvest. It was a scythe with cutting ability. The weapon looked very cool, and its rank was very high. This thing would surely show its best side in battle. The guy immediately wanted to practice with his new scythe. Judging by the description, it refers to something conceptual. Lishu once told him that there was some secret in the director's office that could greatly humiliate a man. The hero wanted to test his new weapon on Sial. The boss went into his office right now and apologized for being late. He immediately noticed that there was some object in his colleague's hands, but the guy hid the scythe so quickly that he couldn't get a good look at it. Shaan pretend that he doesn't understand what the man is talking about. His hands are absolutely empty. He can verify this right now. Most likely, Sial was just very tired and he imagined it. The boss has really been working for many days without days off. The guy reported to the man that in 2 weeks a black wolf would come to their city and start riots. Richard told him this. When the director heard the name of the villain, his face filled with rage. He asked the hero to repeat these words again. Apparently Sial and the black wolf have some kind of old conflict. Shaan confirmed that we are talking about this person. The boss could not understand only one thing, why this crazy butcher needed to go to their small town. The guy noticed that the man took his words very seriously, which meant that the black wolf was an incredibly strong fighter. Sial thought for a while and finally asked the hero for help. A madman like their enemy could only be defeated by working together. Shaan happily accepted this proposal. The director does not need to worry. If the black wolf dares to appear, he will lose his life. Sial asks the hero not to be so self-confident. This monster is stronger than anyone he has met before. He needs to prepare well for this battle. Now the guy can go to their arsenal and choose any weapon for himself, so it will be easier for him to deal with the black wolf. When Shaan was walking down the corridor, Lishu noticed him and asked him to wait a little. She had an important conversation. The girl started the dialogue very confidently, but in the end she couldn't say a word for a long time. For some reason she was very shy. As it turned out, Lishu madly wanted to thank her friend for saving her. If it weren't for him, she could have died in that office. The girl also invites her colleague to the restaurant to treat him to dinner to see if the guy is busy that evening. The hero replies that of course he is free. Free food always tastes better. Only a crazy fool could refuse such a thing. Then they should go and book a table. This restaurant serves the best steaks in town. They are very juicy and tender. Shaan asked his friend if she was lying. If he didn't like the food, he might be offended. In fact, he shouldn't worry. Suddenly, the guy had the thought in his head that having a friend was very good. He had never experienced such feelings before. The guys walked down the street and chatted pleasantly. The hero really felt somehow different. Apparently this is how ordinary normal people live. Soon Lishu and her friend were in a restaurant, and on their table were 2 huge juicy steaks. By the way, the prices here are quite high, but the food tasted incredible. Next time Shaan promises to invite his friend to an even better place. After all, they risk their lives every day on the job. Security officers deserve a break. Suddenly, at the next table, someone began to be indignant. The man thought that he had been served spoiled food. Was it really possible that they wanted to poison him? The waiter politely asked the guest to calm down. Their restaurant was completely clean and hygienic. There was no way his steak could be bad. Most likely this psychotic fool just wanted to get to the bottom of something. Now he didn't like the heroes. He considered them lower-class scum. Why did they eat with him? When the girl heard this, she seemed to be overwhelmed, but the guy took everything calmly. There was no point in paying attention to idiots. The hero reassured his friend, because people always worry about what they lack, such as this upstart only care about their social status. Their conversation was heard by a loud guest. These words made him very angry. He hates listening to insults addressed to him. These beggars are probably looking for trouble. Shaan was even surprised at how hot-tempered this psycho was. Apparently he grew up in a rich family and had never seen real life. It would be best for him to climb back into his mother and ask her to give birth again. This is the only way to correct such fools. The man tried to hit the hero with his fist. The guy, in turn, did not want to fight, but simply used gravity control. Because of this, all the clothes on the upstart's body instantly turned into small scraps of fabric, and now he stood in the middle of the restaurant completely naked. Lishu was greatly amused by this. Just now this fool acted like a formidable warrior, but now he looks more like a teddy bear. All the other guests of the restaurant also began to laugh. In fact, this crazy person was disturbing every visitor to this establishment. The man was very embarrassed and ordered everyone to stop. If these people did not shut up now, he would definitely take revenge on them. In the end, the administrator called the security guard. They will not serve customers who behave so obscenely. Within a few minutes, this psycho and his girlfriend were kicked out of the restaurant. He continued to hurl threats at the heroes for a long time. The girl really liked this performance, such an adult, and at the same time he is not even able to keep his pants on. The administrator also asked them for forgiveness. They should have called security much earlier. As an apology, their order would be free. Lishu thanked the restaurant employee. It was very tactful of them. They got rid of this vile type and treated them to dinner. They should definitely leave a good review. Since everything is free today, they should come here again in the future. The girl happily agrees. They had a great time. They need to take more breaks between work in the security department. Meanwhile, on one of the roofs of a multi-story building, the villains were talking. One of them had bad news. These people are clearly somehow connected with the Black Wolf and his organization. Their office was discovered by the intelligence services. If this is true, then the soldiers can come at any moment. One of the bandits believed that this was not a reason to stop the experiment, because now was a critical time for awakening special abilities. That's why they should stay here and continue, but the other man didn't agree with that. He didn't want to die. No specimen can be more valuable than their life. Do these fools really want to die for the sake of some special abilities? The first criminal suggested that the thug try to tell this to their boss. Perhaps the Black Wolf would allow him to leave. The big guy suddenly cooled down. This bald upstart shouldn't bully him. Now they have 3 days. If they don't make it in time, then it will all be over. After this, the big man and his assistant leave. It is still unclear how all these villains and the organization are connected. The bald criminal at some point exhaled with relief. In fact, he was very much afraid that this giant would kill him. In the end, he understood perfectly well that life is much more important than some examples, but their boss does not want to listen to excuses. Meanwhile, Shaan was at home and chatting with his friend. Shaan was now going on an excursion. The girl went to some community. The name of this place sounded somehow suspicious, but probably the guy just imagined it. Suddenly, someone turned to the hero. It was strange, because usually he only talks to Shaan, and she is now in another place. It turned out to be Lishu. They had just received important news. Now they need to track down the members of the gang of killer bees. It is better to act as quickly as possible. The captain sent the girl here along Shaan. The man wants the guy to lead their team to capture criminals. While they were driving in the car, Shaan clarified what exactly they managed to find. It turned out to be a base of villains. They conduct experiments on people there. It was located exactly in the meeting place where Shaan went today. The hero was very scared for his friend. Meanwhile, a girl appeared at the scene, who was a member of the clan of killer bees. Today she did not manage to get enough sleep. Why did the special services need to come to this filthy place? Her boss is too timid. Apparently the villains already knew about the plans of the security department. Suddenly, a girl with red hair notices Shaan. She looked like an ordinary person who got lost in a strange place. The criminal became interested in this and decided to follow up. Perhaps this stranger was a spy who had been called by the intelligence services. Shaan really acted as if she had never been to these places before. Suddenly the girl knocked on the doors of one of the buildings. An elderly man of small stature opened the door for her. He asked the beauty who she had come to. Ordinary people do not appear here. Shaan said that she is from the public committee. Today she needs to find out about the family situation of this family. It turned out that only the grandfather and his grandson live in the house. This guy's parents are very far from here. They don't need anything, and now the girl can go. At the last moment, the beauty tried to offer them some kind of agreement. But the elderly man did not want to listen to her and immediately closed the door. Today Xiao Shen was unable to find out any details. The girl knew that this boy's parents first went missing and then died. It's a shame that this happened. The criminal immediately guessed that this stranger wanted to investigate the case of 2 failed experimental subjects. She needed to be kept under control. Meanwhile, it was starting to get dark outside. Now Xiao Shen had better go home and think about his evidence in a calm environment. Suddenly, a girl with red hair crept up behind her and used a special substance to put the beauty to sleep. Shaan kept trying to contact his friend, but she did not answer either calls or chat messages. Lishu asked how his progress was. Unfortunately, it would be impossible to contact Xiao Shen. They need to go to this community as soon as possible. It was a small market. Most likely the girl was grabbed by killer bees. We need to find out where their hiding place is. As soon as the heroes got out of the car, they were immediately asked to wait a little. It turned out that there were several allies there. They were called the first team of the Yang squad. The captain asked them to come here to help. The guys were named Chen and Tang Ji, and the girl was Gao Yi. However, the hero thought that he was simply being mocked. Why did he need the help of such newcomers? They had obviously been working in the department for only a couple of months. Chen, in turn, asked the guy not to make hasty conclusions. The 3 of them had already fought with a variety of enemies from the gang of killer bees more than once. In any case, Shaan does not need to be responsible for their safety. In the end, all the fighters are sent forward. They walked along the street for several minutes, but could not find anything. This place turned out to be very quiet, only the wind sometimes rustled between the houses. Shaan pointed out that this area is very large. They should call more people here so that they can search every corner. Lishu reported that the reinforcement group had completely surrounded this community. They were all elite rank soldiers, so everything would be fine. At some point, one of the villains discovered a group of heroes. After all, their hideout was discovered by the security department. Now they have to stop them. The man decided to act immediately and immediately jumped down. He tried to kick one of the employees with all his might. His blow turned out to be incredibly powerful, but all the heroes managed to dodge it. In fact, you could die from such an attack. The scoundrel believed that the security staff were just a bunch of arrogant losers and there was no way they could defeat him. Gao Yi warned the others that their enemy was a high-level esper, so everyone should act as carefully as possible. The man appreciated the girl's attentiveness. At that moment his whole body began to change, and after a few seconds he was completely transformed. Now the villain has turned into a vile mutant with sharp claws and a long tail. This is definitely the result of terrible experiments. The scoundrel chose Gao Yi as her first target. Fortunately she was able to block the blow with her katana. As a result, the girl flew several meters back. Her friends prepared to help her. She must win this battle at any cost. Now it's best to act together. The monster is very strong. It will be incredibly difficult to cope with it alone. The men activated their unique techniques, one of which allowed them to use telepathy, and the second to create a strong barrier. The villain was able to fully feel the full power of these techniques. His head was torn from unbearable pain and he could not move. At this moment, Gao Yi must finish off the vile mutant as quickly as possible. Tang Ji will not be able to hold him back for long in this position. The girl was about to use a technique called the cultivator shift. The hero asked his friend what it meant. Lishu explained to him that these fighters practice ancient cultivation skills and fight with special energy. In theory, they are not ability users, but for convenience, they are classified under a general category with different functions. Shaan was very surprised when he heard this. These people come out just like those cultivators from the novels who are very popular now. Meanwhile, Gao Yi tried to concentrate as much of her spiritual energy as possible in order to strike with all her might. Just a few seconds later, a huge stream of magic erupted from her sword, which looked like a beautiful blue dragon. The technique was very effective. The vile monster still could not move, so he had no chance to avoid a direct hit. The mutant could only stand still and scream in pain. At some point, his body began to become covered with huge, deep wounds. After some time, the heroes held their breath. They need to finally make sure whether this villain died or not. It was hard to believe, but the monster was still alive, and besides, his wounds began to heal instantly. The girl could not even interrupt his regeneration. The mutant appreciated Gao Ye's efforts. She really did a good job, but she is still very far from reaching his level. The guys couldn't believe their eyes. This was their strongest move. Now they need to jump over their heads if they are going to survive. In addition, the girl with the katana has spent all her spiritual power. Now she will not be able to continue the fight. Is she really that weak? Shaan, in turn, remained absolutely calm. He calmly walked out of the barrier and asked to leave this matter to him. Gao Yi asked him not to take such a risk, but Lishu assured the others that there was no need to worry about this guy, they just needed to wait a little. The mutant wanted to finish off the hero with one blow. Even the girl with the shift of the cultivator could not hit him, so what is this fool counting on? Even at that moment when the monster came close to the guy, Shaan did not change the expression on his face. He was definitely confident in his abilities. And this is not without reason, because with the help of an ordinary slap he managed to throw the villain several meters to the side. The monster had never seen anything like this. Even his father never dared to slap him in the face. This upstart needs to be taught a lesson properly. But the mutant didn't even have time to finish his sentence when the hero was already holding him by the throat. Now he will remember this pain for the rest of his life. The guy lifted the villain off the ground and hit him in the face countless times. The monster had never experienced such humiliation. His new acquaintances stood nearby and admired him. Now, more than anything else, they wanted to learn the same techniques. At some point, the scoundrel realizes that he has no chance of winning this battle. He admits his mistake and asks to be released. Shaan was just trying to achieve this. Now the man is obliged to take them to his boss, and even if he doesn't even think about resisting. Their hideout was in a building nearby. Now the inside was full of criminals. It was too dangerous to go here directly. Suddenly, one of them breaks down and says that they have been waiting for orders for too long. Why can't they leave right now? The second one answered him that their group was obliged to stay here and be ready. If they left without an order, there would be consequences. From their conversations it became clear that they had Shaan hostage. One pervert wanted to go to her and have a little fun. The vile villain admired the beauty of this girl. He was even ready to be reborn as an animal if he had a chance to taste her. Another criminal warned the pervert that it is better not to do this if his life is dear to him. A few minutes later, the same bald man who had previously been on the roof of the building came to them and asked them about the hostage. The vile villain immediately answered him that the girl was safe and sound in the next room. At that moment the villain was trembling with fear. The leader of this gang opened the doors and walked inside. Shaan sat on a chair and tried to remain calm. The bald man was even surprised how this girl managed to look so confident. Perhaps she was like that by nature. The beauty first asked why they captured her. In fact, the villain considered her a spy sent by the security service. But she doesn't have to worry about anything. If she behaves obediently, then she will be fine. Shaan, you just have to answer a few questions. Beauty couldn't figure out what they needed. She's not a member of the security department, so she doesn't have any information. As a result, the villain decides to simply use his unique ability and find out everything on his own. Using memory scanning, a man could penetrate the mind of another person and extract any data from there. However, this time everything was different. As soon as the scoundrel tried to do this, his whole body was seized with severe fear. There was emptiness inside the girl's mind. This caused the villain to panic. As if he were crazy, he began to look around, trying to see at least something in the pitch darkness. At some point, terrible red eyes began to appear near him. There were so many of them that it was simply impossible to count the number. Suddenly the man thought that he would never get out of this place. Would he really die? He had never felt such horror. In the real world, the villain stood still and could not move. Tears appeared in his eyes, and a very loud scream came from his mouth. A few minutes later he managed to come to his senses, but fear still constrained his movements. Where did those terrible eyes come from? The bald man didn't even immediately understand that he had seen all this in the hostage's thoughts. Was it really her special technique? After this, the scoundrel quickly ran out of the room and ordered his charges to immediately release this girl. The other bandit could not understand why they would let the hostage go. They were only able to catch a suspicious specimen. This fool doesn't even understand what they have done just now. If these fools don't free Shaan now, they will regret it for the rest of their lives. The second bandit was going to deal with this girl on his own, that she could oppose him, but this idiot did not even understand what he could face. Just at this moment, the heroes burst into the room. Shaan greeted everyone and apologized for such a sudden appearance. This vile place is ideal for such a dirty rat as this villain. The man, in turn, asked him to be spared. After all, he fulfilled all the requirements. The hero gladly gave the loser to his accomplices. Anyway, he is so worthless that he does not pose a danger. One of the leaders hated traitors very much. Had the bandit really forgotten about this? How he had the courage to lead enemies into their hideout? The man tried his best to justify himself. In fact, he had no other choice, otherwise these people would have killed him. The elder did not want to listen to these excuses. He hit the traitor on the head with all his might, as a result of which the bandit completely lost his head. Shaan ordered these freaks to immediately release the hostage. This is the only way they can save their lives. It is better for them not to resist. One of the leaders could not believe that such a brat really expected to defeat him, even if he tried to hit him. The guy, without thinking twice, complied with the bald villain's request. The attack was so strong that the villain flew several meters back and hit the wall. This nonentity really has very strange desires. Apparently he just likes to feel pain. It's better to see a doctor. The bald villain, like everyone else, could turn into a disgusting mutant. Although he underestimated the enemy, his strength was still greater. When this happened, the hero's system was immediately activated, and now he could use his unique abilities. In fact, this was just a warm-up. Now these freaks are feeling the full wrath of Shaan. The game begins right now. By this time, absolutely all the villains had turned into monsters. Most likely, they were so affected by the cry of the bald man. The hero asked his friends to stand behind. It was better for them not to interfere in this fight. He could deal with these mutants alone. Lishu trusted her friend completely, so she didn't ask stupid questions, but simply asked him to be very careful. But Gao Yi didn't know this guy that well yet, so she couldn't just stand still. After all, this big guy is much stronger than the previous ones. Lishu stopped her. The girl asked the hero to be careful, not because he might get hurt, but because they needed the monster alive. Therefore, the hero must fight as carefully as possible. At that moment he just pierced the enemy's body with his dagger. Such a weak blow, of course, did not harm the mutant at all. He asked Shaan if this was really all he was capable of. After this, the guy created a pistol in his right hand and broke the distance with the enemy. You need to come up with a way to neutralize him without lethal consequences. The bullets also could not cause any harm to this creature. Its skin turned out to be so strong that the cartridges simply bounced in different directions. Another thick-skinned monster, maybe a flashbang will work on him. In any case, you should at least try. Unfortunately, this technique also turned out to be absolutely useless against the mutant. Is this really all that the hero is capable of, and where is his arrogance? Shaan looked back and was convinced that his friends were successfully coping with the other creatures. After all, they were also capable of something. This greatly angered the enemy. How could this insignificant little man dare to be distracted during their battle? He would immediately crush him right in front of his comrades. The monster jumped high up and wanted to hit the guy with all his might, but in response he used gravity control. Because of this, the mutant was completely paralyzed. Gravitational control was his weak point, but how could this brat gain such strength? The scoundrel could not even imagine how many more unique techniques Shaan had in his arsenal. He had never even dreamed of such a thing. But the monster was not going to give up at all. Although his attack was interrupted, his skin still gives him a great advantage in this fight. Therefore, he still has every chance of crushing the arrogant upstart into a cake. He should not become arrogant ahead of time. Now the mutant moved much faster. He truly has much greater strength than all the enemies the hero had encountered before. But it doesn't really matter. His impenetrable skin is complete nonsense. It's just an excuse to test out a new spiritual weapon. The villain remained completely confident in his invulnerability. This weakling needs to stop his bluff. Nothing can hurt him. As soon as the scoundrel finished his monologue, Shaan activated a special technique called cutting. At the same moment the mutant's hand flew to the side. The monster couldn't believe it. He had never fought with someone who could penetrate his thick armor before. He thought it was impossible. His perfect defense turned out to be not so strong. His main mistake was to underestimate his opponent. Now the mutant finally realized that he had completely lost. Like all the other scoundrels, he immediately began to make excuses and beg for mercy. However, the hero has already proven many times that he is not going to leave alive anyone who mocks ordinary people. These creatures should not even count on pardon. The villain's head instantly separated from the rest of the body, and after that the system reported that the next boss had been defeated and the power level had increased to 9. Apparently even the guy's special ability considered this mutant a weakling, since he did not receive any weapon drawing as a reward. When it was all over, Lishu ran up to her friend and asked if he was okay. The girl was still very worried. The hero replied that everything was fine with him, but unfortunately they were unable to complete the mission, because this bastard died. As it turned out, this was not a problem, because there was another leader here. Most likely they occupy the same position and have the same information. Shaan first wanted to know where they were holding the hostage. If anything happened to her, then this fool would regret being born. The man replied that she was in that room and no one did anything with her. The guy immediately rushed to help his friend. Shaan sat tied up on a chair all this time. The hero was very worried about her. Fortunately these freaks did not have time to harm her. The beauty pretended that she was very scared. Tears even appeared in her eyes. What were her intentions after all? As soon as Shaan freed the hostage from the ropes, she immediately rushed into his arms. The girl plays her role well. The bald villain asked the guy to calm down. They didn't do anything wrong. The beauty wasn't hurt at all. Since they need this man alive, the hero will save his life. Now he will go with them to the office and tell them everything he knows about killer bees. The villain didn't even think about resisting. He really wanted to tell the security workers about this girl's secret. However, as soon as he tried to open his mouth, he immediately felt an incredibly strong pain throughout his body. What was happening to him? At this moment, the man was completely immobilized, and all the people around except Shaan seemed to freeze in one place. This beauty has some kind of inexplicable technique. She ordered not to tell anyone about what this person saw in her head today. And if this fool tries to reveal her secret, he will feel such horror that he could not even imagine in his worst nightmares. The man screamed in fear and swore that he would keep his mouth shut. He would not have the courage to spill the beans. Just please leave him alive. To others, his behavior looked very strange. Why did this villain suddenly fall to his knees and start talking strange nonsense? But there was no time for that now. The scoundrel was so shocked that he could not walk on his own, so he was simply dragged into the car. The man could hardly understand who Shaan really was, how he managed to conquer such a formidable girl. Soon Shaan and the hero returned home. The beauty pretended that she was very scared. She thought that she would never return, because these people are murderers and psychopaths. The guy tried to calm her down. He promised that he would find her anywhere in the world. Keeping his word is his life principle. In truth, Shaan lied a little. If he had not been informed about his girlfriend's whereabouts, then everything could have ended very badly. Suddenly the guy turned to the girl and asked her to move into his house today. Very terrible things are happening in the world now. If they are close, the hero will be able to feel calmer. Shaan was very embarrassed when she heard this. Shaan insisted, because many unexpected things may happen in the future. Next time he may simply not have time to come to the rescue. It was difficult for the girl to immediately answer. It was too unexpected. They had never even visited each other before, but in the end she agrees. She had one condition: she would sleep in the hero's room. The guy didn't mind. Moving to the living room was not a problem for him. To be honest, Shaan was counting on some kind of resistance. She didn't like it when Shaan behaved so obediently. Soon evening came. The guy sat on his couch and thought, with his current strength he can defeat any enemy, which means all his loved ones are safe. But what to do when he is at work? Perhaps he should pay a bodyguard to guard his girlfriend around the clock. In fact, it's worth thinking about this a little later. Now the hero wanted to use his lottery ticket for leveling up. For some reason, this time the system glowed incredibly brightly. Did he really get such a rare item? However, at one moment all hopes evaporated. As a reward, Shaan received some kind of flashlight, which at first glance looked absolutely ordinary. But in fact, this thing was called a spark. The light source will never go out. Anyway, it can be useful in dark rooms. Now there was nothing left to do. The hero wanted to go to the living room and go to bed. Today he had a very difficult day. Meanwhile, at the security office, Sial interrogated the villain. He was interested in what the organization was doing besides kidnapping children. The bald man denied everything in response to this. He tried to prove that his group had never kidnapped people or experimented on them. The director, of course, did not believe it, but since the scoundrel claims that he is an ordinary messenger, then let him at least tell something. It turned out that the only goal of this criminal was to control the mutant that Shaan killed this afternoon. The director was very sorry that the scoundrel chose this path. His ability to analyze other people's memories could be very useful in their case. The villain was literally trembling with fear. Now he is ready for any concessions. If the organization wants, then the man is ready to work for them as much as he wants. Sial thought this was an excellent choice, but of course no one would pay him. Since this scoundrel did not kill anyone, it is possible. At the same time, the villain should not forget his place. He must put a special collar on his neck and never take it off. The director threw the thing into the hands of the scoundrel. If the bald man tries to use his equipment without permission, he will greatly regret it. In fact, the criminal had no other choice, so he obediently did everything and promised to cooperate with the security department. Exactly 2 weeks have passed since that incident at the market, and the hero still has not received a new assignment from his leadership. Right now a black wolf arrived in the city. He was a very tall man with a strong build. He said that he really missed this place. An assistant immediately ran out to meet him and greeted his boss with a wide smile. The car was already ready. The villain got a little angry, because he had already repeatedly ordered everyone to call him by his name in public. The unfortunate ward suddenly began to tremble from fear of apologizing. He should think better with his own head. Perhaps Mr. Wang will forgive him. In fact, the black wolf is in a good mood now, so everything is fine. Now they need to get into the car and go to the office. Although the scoundrel was in a good mood, he was not going to spare the residents of this city. Soon they would feel all his wrath. Meanwhile, Shaan was sitting with the captain in a cafe and talking about work. This establishment is designed specifically for employees of their service. The boss asked the guy if everything suited him. In fact, the hero liked this work, although sometimes it was a little tiring. Sial was happy to hear this. In fact, they put themselves in great danger every day, but this guy is clearly not the shy type. The man reminded the hero of his mission. Today exactly 2 weeks have passed, which means the black wolf is already in the city. You need to be prepared for anything. Security had already discovered his location. Shaan couldn't wait until he finally had a chance to avenge his parents. The director asked the hero to calm down a little. If they act so impulsively, they could scare off the criminal. They need to work carefully. The guy listened to his boss and cooled down. Now he is ready to listen to the plan of action. Sial wants to tell everything right here. The black wolf came to the city to meet with representatives of a gang of killer bees. The leadership of the Security Council wants them to kill all the villains at the meeting place. Shaan remembered how in his previous life there was a leak of poisonous gas around this time. There was no doubt that their enemies were to blame. The guy asked the director if they knew the purpose of the black wolf and the other gang. They needed to somehow warn ordinary people about the danger. Sial suggested that the scoundrels want to create unrest in the city in order to divert the attention of the police and intelligence agencies from their actions. They might want to use explosives or something similar to cause massive bloodshed, the hero suggested. However, the man denied such a theory. They do not have the ability to deliver such a quantity of weapons here, and besides, the black wolf acts differently. The guy gave the boss an idea. Since they don't have explosives or special abilities, they most likely use poison. Sial immediately guessed that the villains wanted to seize a chemical plant in the western suburbs and stage a terrorist attack. In addition, a new batch of goods for research and development work has just been delivered to this enterprise. This cannot be a coincidence. The man abruptly jumped up from the table. He will immediately send several people to guard this plant. Criminals cannot be allowed to break through there. Shaan decided to take advantage of the moment and asked the boss for at least one person who would guard Shaan. The man was a little surprised. Is this girl really in some kind of danger? After all, now every person is worth his weight in gold. The heroes, in turn, continue to stand their ground. If his girlfriend is safe, then he won't have to worry about her. In the end, the director agrees. He should have thought about this earlier. He will send a reliable person to protect Shaan. Sial still remembered with horror the incident with the ghost in his office. This girl is stronger than all the security departments combined. Soon evening came and the guy was returning home with a gift in his hands. He never asked his girlfriend what she liked. He had to rely on intuition. He had a funny toy in the shape of a panda in his bag. girls generally like small cute things. Suddenly, a sharp kunai flew straight at his head. Shaan never expected to meet his enemy in such a place. Only at the last moment did he manage to dodge and stop the throwing weapon with the help of a package. The attacker turned out to be a pretty girl. She was surprised by the hero's dexterity. Now it's clear why this case was entrusted to her. The guy immediately asked her if one of the killer bees had sent her, but the beauty did not want to answer. Anyway, he was already a walking corpse. The criminal directed a stream of her spiritual energy in the direction of the hero, but he easily dodged and immediately launched a counterattack. At the same time, the girl turned out to be incredibly fast. It was as if she had disappeared into thin air. And after that, it also suddenly appeared right behind Shaan. The handsome man was moving too slowly. At that moment, the beauty's sharp kunai was just a few centimeters from the guy's throat. If he hesitated for even a second, he would die. Fortunately, he had the ability to use gravity control even with his hands. This allowed him to completely paralyze the enemy. The hero immediately grabbed the criminal by the throat and tried to find out who ordered his murder. If she resists, she will die. With the last of her strength, the beauty reached for the special button on her clothes, and suddenly a very strong blue aura appeared around them. Thanks to this, the girl was able to get out of a hopeless situation, but now she has too little strength left. Shaan noticed this. He was surprised by this weapon. In his world such an energy grenade was made only a year later. At the same time, the criminal had several more of these things in her arsenal, and she asked if the guy liked these sensations. This time the grenade turned out to be fiery. The beauty threw it straight towards the guy, and a second later there was a very powerful explosion. The girl thought that it was all over. Today she was one step away from death. In fact, she was very lucky. Suddenly one notices that someone is at her side. The hero was definitely not going to die today. He hit the enemy in the stomach with all his might. The attack was so powerful that the criminal flew several meters away. She could not understand how Shaan managed to survive. To be honest, such worthless grenades are simply not capable of causing serious harm to a guy. She should work on them. After this, the beauty accepts her defeat. She realized that she cannot win in this confrontation. She has something to say. The hero already understood that the Black Wolf and his guard dogs had a hand in this, but let the girl tell everything she knows. As soon as the criminal said a few words about the organization and those who ordered the murder, her head suddenly separated from the rest of her body. The guy immediately turned back to see who did it, but behind him it was completely empty. He should call the security officials here to remove the body. Maybe they can find some kind of trace. At this moment, his phone rang. It was Sial. Had the enemies already captured the chemical plant? In fact, everything is in order with the Enterprise, but some members of the gang fled to a metallurgical plant in the south, and with them several hostages. Although he and his colleagues tried to get ahead of the criminals, they did not succeed, and now they will have to act based on the situation. Meanwhile, there were several connected people at the plant, and the scoundrels were trying to understand how the intelligence services were able to expose them. One of the villains suggested that there was a rat among them. Otherwise, how did the police manage to understand everything? The girl replied that although this fool has a lot of muscles, his brain is very small. None of those present would dare to leak information. The bully was very angry when he heard this. Even if this fool dares to insult him even once more, she will greatly regret it. One of the criminals tried to resolve this conflict. In fact, now is not the time to argue with each other. It would be better to ask your boss what they should do next. It turns out that the Black Wolf is also here. They only lost a couple of useless losers. There is no reason to panic. Perhaps the intelligence services prevented them from releasing gas and poisoning people, but this does not mean that they lost. Suddenly, the leader put his hand on the head of one of the hostages. The man begged the villain to leave him alive. He even offered a lot of money, but the Black Wolf was not interested. With the help of his special ability he could control blood. Thus, the scoundrel could use any living organism as his own food. After a few seconds, all the life force passed from the man to the Black Wolf. It looked very cruel. As long as he has this technique, no one in this world is capable of defeating him. They will achieve their goal anyway.